What is going on, guys? Welcome back to more Witch on the Holy Nights. This is going to be the second part of Night of the Witches 2. So this is the second half of chapter 5. And unfortunately, after we're finished with this, we're going to be done with this game for a while, as of there being no translation for the rest of these chapters yet. Not that I've seen, at least. If anybody wants to update me on there being any new translation of this, please let me know in the comments or anywhere else, Twitter, whatever. But unfortunately, after this video, we're probably going to be done with this game for a while. I hate to say it, I don't want to leave this game yet. I really have been, like I said, I really have been enjoying this game up until this point. I really like the story. I really love the characters. I like Aoko's character. I like Sojiro. I think it's a very interesting take on a character, that he's incredibly ignorant. I do like that. So I like a lot of what I've seen from this game, and I really hope that the rest of it gets translated soon, or sometime in the near future at least, because I would definitely like to see more of this game. Hopefully either more of it gets translated soon, or if we're lucky, the entirety of the game. But I don't know, because the whole thing about the translation of this game, unfortunately, is it seems like it's been changing hands a lot. Like, first there was one team of people that were working on it, then another group of people started working on it, and then another group of people started working on it. So I really have no idea what's happening with the translation. So unfortunately, it's just kind of up in the air right now, from what I can tell. But yeah, if anybody knows anything, again, let me know. I would love to continue this playthrough, but after this video, it will probably be on hiatus until any more chapters get translated, unfortunately. So, that being said, let's get this started. Night of the Witches 2. And where we last left off, there was a confrontation, or supposedly there's going to be a confrontation between Alice and Aoko because of Sojiro. For them, it was an almost nostalgic melody. Something which had at one time filled this world. They had all of them silently believed it would last forever. And once at the beginning and once at the end. A joyful, lonely, mysterious siren heralding the opening of the dream and the return to reality. The night shook. A song was sung. Now, their lost paradise would be exhumed. Is that a cat's eye? So many deserted dreams. So many forsaken idols. They all responded to the blue cat's cry. Maybe that's supposed to be the Kitsy-chan mascot. The bell's name was Diddle Diddle. Oh, okay, it's a bell. Allowing every fable, permitting every mystery, this was Koonji Alice's sorcery, more magical than magic itself. Did it just sink into the concrete? Or the bricks? How selfish of you, Aoko. Is that really something you can decide all on your own? She stood atop the clock tower like an ominous black bird, quietly preening her skirt with delicate fingers. Alice. Aoko's voice trembled faintly. With a single glare from Alice, the pleasant atmosphere from earlier had completely vanished. That girl, Sojiro dimly recalled a fuzzy memory. He was too far away to clearly make out her face, but he was certain he had seen her several times around town. However, when he tried to remember exactly where, a strange tension hindered him. He couldn't place her at all. I'm surprised. I didn't take you for a warrior, Alice. Didn't you say you'd leave tonight to me? Ever so slightly, she raised her guard and took a half step forward. It was an unconscious movement. To an outside observer, it might even seem like she was doing it to protect the boy beside her. I would say that's what it looks like. Alice's silence grew ever heavier. Her eyes, glowering downward, showed no emotion. Nevertheless, a crushing pressure and indescribable unease steadily encroached upon the plaza. A bell? If he strained his ears, he could almost make out the distant tolling of a bell. Unbelievably, the rolling wave-like sound was emanating from beneath the earth. Yeah, somehow sank into the ground. It's magic! Hey, Aoko, that girl. Quiet. Okay. He shrunk back, out of the way. It was like he had asked, "Is that a friend of yours?" and gotten, "Do you want to die?" as his answer. That's right. I don't know if you could call it worry, but I had a bad feeling and came to see how things were going. It isn't as if I doubted you. Well, thanks for that. Though, if you're going to have a premonition, I wish you'd clue me in a little earlier. Anyway, as you can see, everything's worked itself out. It's late, so you can hurry on home. After all, you trust me to handle things, right? Their gazes met. On one side, Alice, cold and just a little unpleasant. On the other, Alco, boldly daring her to speak up if she had a problem. No, I've changed my mind. Since I went through the trouble of coming out here, why don't we go back together? That's more your style, isn't it? You can tell me about that puppet on the way. Oh, we're talking about styles now, are we? Whatever, just get out of here already. Go hole yourself up in your room and make more of those useless starlings or something. Bitch, no, you did not just say that. A sigh of disappointment slipped out from between her lovely lips. It seemed she was more shocked than angry. Alco, I hate to even say it, but are you serious? Quietly, she questioned the girl she'd lived with for almost 2 years. I'm amazed. Didn't you say we'd protect our secret together? Don't tell me you're still clinging on to that side. Or could it be that you've grown fond of him? Not particularly. I just feel the way I feel, that's all. To begin with, a plan is something that changes depending on the situation, and that goes double for moods. Besides, don't you think that absolutely sticking to a promise no matter what is a little old-fashioned? They continued glaring at each other without showing any signs of backing down. It was regrettable, but in the end they were merely cooperators. They had no interest in mutual understanding. As a result, the form of their friendship was complicated, unique. If there was ever a situation where their opinions clashed, they wouldn't budge until one of them buckled. Neither gave their consideration to the other, and that was just the way they liked it. That's right. This sort of behavior is just like you. She sighed again, bigger than last time. We'll argue later. It's not like I need your help to get rid of him. Her slender fingers stirred, as if designating a chess piece. A fork? She gonna stab him with a giant... Oh god, a giant fork. Huh? For Sodro, who had already been hunted by Alco and witnessed an automaton, it was an incomprehensible wonder. While Alco's attacks on the moving puppet had defied common sense, they were at least rooted in reality. He had been surprised, sure, but not mystified. However, this thing, which had appeared out of nowhere from a seemingly unrelated gesture, was an entirely different story. Like a child fascinated by a magic trick, he watched the girl's attack approach without so much as lifting a finger. At the last second, a blue light shot in from the side to deflect it, and it ended up obliterating it without a trace. Ah, crap! Alco, who had raised her arm reflexively, realized what she had just done. This means war, bitch! What is this? Going back on your promise wasn't enough for you? You intend to break the rules, too? The midwinter air, already cold, grew icy. Alice may have looked calm and collected, but in truth, there were times when she was even more hot-headed than Alco. Chief among them was when people messed with her familiars. If, by chance, one of them was broken through some innocent mistake, the matter would be resolved by a week-long silent treatment. But if it was maliciously destroyed, in that case, she would take revenge no matter what. That's just the sort of person she was. Whoopsie. Well, it was bound to happen sooner or later. Looks like I finally incurred the wrath of God. She was shocked at her own stupidity, but at the same time felt strangely invigorated. She wasn't going to make excuses, and she didn't regret what she did. If she had broken the rules, then so had Alice. Alco. How should I put it? It was actually a relief. Whatever happened now, happened. She had no intention of violating her principles. If there was anything to apologize for, it was simply misjudging how much power to put into her shot. You know, it'll really bother me if he dies tonight. Why don't you kill him another time, Alice? Postponing his execution one measly day won't hurt anything. As far as she was concerned, taking up the defense for Suspect S was only natural. Are those your personal feelings? Is that so wrong? Paying back my debts is important to me. More important than our agreement? It depends on the circumstances, but yes. The human rights of the third person were of little concern to them. They were too caught up in fanning each other's flames. Why am I always left out of these things? And the first one to budge, or rather explode, was the girl in black. I see. I understand now, Alco. I will kill him here. You will protect him here. In other words, you're saying you want to fight me, yes? That's the absolute last thing I want. Alco stifled her urge to complain. She knew all about Alice's sorcery and was painfully aware of just how much mystery was hidden away in that tiny body. Her odds of victory were almost, or rather, totally non-existent. On top of that, once Koonji Alice was set off, she was merciless. It didn't matter if her opponent was a roommate, a friend, or even a beloved relative. When she battled as a witch, she became an unstoppable, cold-hearted monster. Alco took another half step forward to steel her resolve. There was no turning back now. This was no longer a petty quarrel about some eyewitness. Their friendship was based on the premise that they were spiritual equals, regardless of the gulf in abilities between them. That was exactly why, if she was going to remain true to herself, she couldn't compromise or talk her way out of this. Of course, I'll protect this idiot even if it means killing you. Magic circuit activated. Her circuits groaned. Her body, which had slumbered through the fight with the puppet, burned to show its true value. Besides, we were going to have to kill each other one day anyway. And her fighting spirit overcame her terror. Something tells me that Alice is not going to be affected by that at all. Alco's bullets were an extraordinarily straightforward formula which used her own body, that is, her magic circuits, as a gun barrel to fire magical energy. It wasn't nature interference, like summoning a wind, parting a sea, or inducing decay. It was taking the imaginary movement known as magical energy, processing it into reality, and shooting it out as heat. As such, the destructive power was directly equivalent to the amount of magical energy she could handle. Currently, her shots came in 3 levels. The first was what she had used against Sojiro, a single-action sorcery which could be cast just by activating her crest. And this was the second. It was a double-action sorcery cast by activating her crest and using a simplified incantation. Yep. But it's no good. But Alice dispersed the spirited attack without even batting an eye. Oh, was that all? Sojiro is like, what the fuck is happening? Alco clicked her tongue. A high-speed sneak attack using simplified incantations couldn't break through Alice's defenses. As obstinate as ever, I see. Don't you think that shell of yours is making you a little too complacent, Alice? She covered up her frustration with a taunt. For her part, Alice seemed amused by the show of false bravado. I suppose this is what they call tit for tat, Although, for it to start like this... Humans never cease to amaze me, getting worked up over such trivialities. A giggle. With a heartfelt smile of admiration, she pointed her left hand at the ground. I have more forks where that came from. It's time to eat! Zap, 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 zap. Countless spears burst forth from the plaza bricks. Those looked like forks to me. Sojiro, get back! She grabbed his hand as she called out and yanked him back faster than he could react. The utensils bubbling up from the earth chased after them as if they had a mind of their own. A phalanx of spears radiated outward, separating Alco and Sojiro from the clock tower. Huh, is that it? The retreat had been just under 10 meters. The growth of the utensils smashing out of the ground had stopped short of what Alco had anticipated, instead forming a ring around the clock tower like firewood around a witch condemned to crucifixion. Isn't this backwards? I figured she'd surround us with spears to keep us from escaping, not the other way around. The path behind them was clear. They could run out the exit and all the way back to the town right now, if they felt so inclined. That's unless she put a barricade there to stop you. What the fuck is up with Sojiro? He has like one of those expressions like, I can't speak, I'm so shocked or something. Are you feeling okay, Alice? You know that if I see a chance to escape, I won't hesitate to take it, right? If she made it back to civilization, it was her victory. Since she didn't particularly care what happened to Sojiro after tonight, just getting him that far would be enough to... The fuck is that? However, Alice ignored her and lovingly pulled out a small bottle. A green flask? That's... Damn it, this is bad. Fire! Can't shatter my plates, bitch. Not a single bullet reached its mark. Alco's face lost all traces of composure. Indeed, if anybody was being arrogant, it was her. She'd let a little success in sorcery these past 2 years go to her head. She knew her roommate's personality and the gist of her abilities. Oh god. So she had let herself believe she could put one over on her if she just fought her hardest. But it's not enough. Oh, the magic bottle opened. Warm wind tickled her cheeks. Is a genie gonna come out? The banquet of the night fled, tail tucked between its legs, at the appearance of a new lead actor. From somewhere far, far away, came the nostalgic march of a parade. I have no idea what this is going to summon. The Colossal Titan. He's coming. Oh my god. Look at all this. We just blew all our budget on that. No way. Kitsyland has come back. This was a miracle which even Alco and Apprentice Magus had never experienced. Well, we just brought the park back to life. I'm really surprised nobody is noticing what's happening here, or nobody's responded to the explosions, the lights, you know, anything. The dead came to life. The lifeless awakened. Oh, wait, no, it could be because they put a barrier in place. Yeah, that could prevent people from noticing. A deep forest shrouded in mist. Fire-breathing lizards that lurked in swamps. Puppets frolicking at midnight. Ever so tenderly, Koongialis' slender fingers transfigured the park, as if stroking an old sickly cat back to health. Well then, shall we play pretend, Alco? The dumping ground of bygone dreams was, for a single night, reborn. It was an immortal monster that encroached on reality. A dark fairy tale which, once released, would never allow its prey to escape. If you think you can run away, then go ahead. I don't know how far you'll get, but if you're able to overcome this night, I'll recognize your victory. Her words marked the start of a hopeless battle. With a voice full of affection and sadness and innocent joy, the Black Witch laughed at her friend. You won't get away. You will never escape. Kitsy wheel. Let's go right on the Kitsy wheel. And then the Kitsy coaster. Thus, the amusement park regained its former glory. Oh god, I hate that ride. It makes you dizzy so easily. That ride would probably make me vomit, I'll be honest. The countless bulbs that lit up the night. The sound of records pouring from the speakers. Whirling merry-go-rounds, large and small. It should go without saying that it was all completely outrageous. Certainly, converting magical energy into an electric current and restarting the facilities with alchemy was within the realm of possibility. However, simply providing power would not restore that which was broken. What the girl was mixing here was no chemical concoction, but a witch's brew that melted away Providence itself. I'm getting real tired of your shit, Alice. Not good. I've seen plenty of Alice's ploys before, but this is on a whole other level. Set. Crushing down her anxiety, she fired up the crest on her right arm. If magic circuits were a Magus' engine, then the crest was software that assisted the use of sorcery. The Magus is the car, and the mana is the fuel. Something along those lines. For a half-baked Magus like Alco, it was a godsend. Any formula converted into the crest could be reproduced simply by passing magical energy through it, albeit at a reduced efficiency. It was the ultimate proof of her status as the Aozaki heir. Employing double-layer DC formation. Whatever that means, she switched the pattern of her crest to a reproduction of the formula and connected it to her magical circuits. It was a puzzle with dozens of moving parts, like the switches at a railway station, which had to be assembled with the utmost speed and precision. A single-action sorcery had no hope of reaching Koongialis. However, the bullets from before had provided an accurate gauge of her defenses. The attack this time would use 5 times as much power, and drill into her with 20 tons of force. Even taking into account the protection of the swirling fog and the barrier she wore around herself at all times, that should be more than enough to pierce through. If it hit her just right, it would push her sternum into her heart and knock her out. Worst case scenario, it would knock her off the clock tower, but... Are you almost done? Just as she was setting into kill mode, a voice from behind yanked her out of it. Sojiro, who had been watching Aoko and Alice's exchange with a serious look on his face, finally spoke up. So, what's going on exactly? He might as well have been asking for directions to the nearest station. How do you not know? God, Sojiro can be such a dumbass. It's pretty obvious they're trying to kill each other. I mean, if you had just been paying attention to their conversation, you would know this. And not to mention, she just tried to stab you with a giant fork. Part of her wanted to scream at him, but mostly she was just amazed. I would be too. I can't believe I'm actually getting used to this. She tried her best not to sigh and focused on activating her crest. I provoked her a little too much, and negotiations broke down. As far as she's concerned, this is a good opportunity to get rid of me, so she intends to wipe me out along with this park. His face was begging her to explain in a way that was easier to understand. It's because she's holding a grudge against me. I can't even imagine what sort of a nasty death she's got in store for us if we're caught. Basically, unless we do something about her, neither of us is getting out of here alive. In other words, you're just dragging me into your fight. You kind of dragged yourself into it. Well, yeah, pretty much. As if in response to Sojiro, who was still a little slow on the uptake, she fired off her right arm. This time, though, he wasn't her target. Until just a little while ago, she would have been perfectly willing to mow him down, but right now, the girl in the clock tower took priority. And blocked. What the fuck? Flying horses, protect me. Her grasp on the situation was quickly giving way to wonder. Yeah, I can completely sympathize. It was the farthest, most powerful bullet she could muster, given the circumstances, and it had been effortlessly deflected. But that wasn't the problem. If Alice focused entirely on defense, she was probably capable of that much. The real question was, what on earth was that just now? Something mysterious had suddenly swooped in to protect her. Were they horses? Locusts? No, creatures like those that swarmed so thick they blacked out the sky. They were something that shouldn't exist in this world. And flying horses definitely shouldn't exist. Oh no. That was the sound the automaton made. What the fuck is that? It's the Stay Puft Man. What? Stay Puft Man, why? Impossible beings danced in impossible ways. Electricity didn't move them. To begin with, they had no needs for such a thing. These relics, once broken and discarded, no longer abided by human rules. Oh my god, no, it's a giant sack boy. Is that a fucking horse on a train? There's a horse heads on a train. What the fuck? It was an invasion of fairy tales. Or just really demented fairy tales. Oh my god. I don't even know what to say about this. Tim Burton would be having a huge fucking... Just be gushing at all this. I wouldn't be surprised if he designed some of this shit. The automaton from earlier couldn't compare. Even if it was created with sorcery, it had still at least been recognizable as a puppet. But these things, animated for the first time, were already something else entirely. Giant pumpkin head. Empty vessels sprang to life, their forms twisted and grotesque. What the hell? Is that a flying fucking pig right there? A fog of magical energy so dense it could be seen with the naked eye was spreading through the park. Oh wait, no, that's the thing from fucking Cinderella. As over 1,000 creatures rushed to welcome their guests. We're gonna have to defend against all those fucking things. Roused by the chill running down her spine, Aoko unleashed a barrage of single-action bullets. No effect. Balloons are blocking them. Her unbridled attack scattered awkwardly away. The knights of the merry-go-round took flight, and the fire-breathing green lizards began to gather. Fresh-baked bread stands reopened for business, and loaves the size of men marched from the ovens. Wait, what? And loaves the size of men marched from the ovens and formed platoons. What the fuck is this? Those are like fucking sack puppet things. What the? Aoko, behind you! They were being boxed in. The Ferris wheel groaned as it spun. A junk car rocketed through the roller coaster, carrying a crying Kitsy along with it. Man, somebody must have taken a ton of LSD to fucking come up with this. It was a twisted phantasmagoria with Alice at the reins, set against the backdrop of the rusted amusement park. This can't be happening. All she could do was stand there, staring in disbelief, and then she finally realized. Of course, there's only one thing it could be. She'd heard about it from Alice, the familiars of the Mainsters. 3 among them stood above the rest, and among those 3, only one was capable of a phenomenon like this. Its name was Ploy Kickshaw, Flat Snark. Seriously, Alco, behind you! Oh god, it's the horse! Wilbur! Her shots smashed the creatures into smithereens. It was partly because she had switched to more powerful bullets, but mostly it was because it seemed they were all individually less robust than the automaton had been. Sojiro, this way! Putting the clock tower at her back, she grabbed his hand and ran. Alco? Sorry, but we can't stay here. We've got to run. Run? Run where? How should I know? Just run, damn it! It was hard to say if she was shouting for his sake or for her own as she blasted open a path. Her bullets screamed, blowing away the creatures standing in their way, actually merely gathering. They narrowly escaped the net tightening around them. I'm surprised they actually got away. I'm pretty sure they didn't escape the park, though. There's no way they're going to get out of there. No, Sackboy, why? Bullets burst into blue sparks. Alco and Sojiro sprinted down the undulating brick path. The suspension bridge effect was nothing compared to trust born on the battlefield. They both headed toward the exit at full speed without speaking or even making eye contact. This abnormality was limited to the confines of the amusement park, which meant they should be safe if they could just make it outside. But, going by numbers, the Gulf... Oh no, those are bread people. They're bread people. Bread people. Suck on my loafs. Going by numbers, the gulf in war potential was enormous. It was 2 people versus hundreds. Hundreds of pieces of bread. Or rather, 1 person versus hundreds of things. Or pieces of bread formed into human-like shapes, I guess, would be an accurate description. After all, Sojiro was basically useless, and their attackers were more like puppets than anything else. Bread puppets. You okay? Those giant scissors just now didn't hit you, did they? She called back while blasting apart the creatures in their way. There was no time to stop moving, no leeway to turn around. Can I eat this bread, Alco? Somehow, it barely missed me. Sojiro, who was following behind her, answered in an understandably unstrung voice. Going back 5 minutes, they had broken through the siege of the plaza with surprising ease. Apparently, the speed of each park resident's awakening was different. The bigger they were, the longer it took for them to get moving. Why is Alco happy about this? It's a good thing they're not morning people. Alco cracked a joke as she mowed down the small fry that had popped up. But then... Huh? You just jinxed yourself. All of a sudden, something totally outrageous stretched out overhead. Stay puffed, man. Oh, what the fuck is that? Namely, the shear-like claws of the 18-meter-tall mascot in Trying to Top the Lobster restaurants. It's a giant mutant lobster. Scissors descended like a guillotine. With alarming speed, the Red King moved to slice apart the 2 who had trespassed in his domain. Sojiro, U-turn! This way's no good! The gate had been just a little further, but they were forced to take a detour to escape from the giant lobster. Well, now it's crab people. And waiting for them along their new path was a huge swarm of creatures. Crab people? Somehow it barely missed me. Ruminating over the fact that his head had very nearly been lopped clean off his shoulders, Sojiro answered Alco's call. That said, there's something up ahead. Whoa, they're fresh baked? Looks like it. In other words, they're cannon fodder. She stopped and revved up her crest. Range is 7, 6, 5 meters. Snap should be enough to take them out. And now they're going to be burnt to a crisp. Crispy bread. Her right arm flashed as she skidded across the bricks, firing a rain of bullets. Which prioritized maximizing the number of shots over raw damage, sent the creatures flying in a gratifying arc. Alco, over there. On it. It's called teamwork. See, this is what happens when you work together. You can get things done. Like shooting up bread men. A riotous profusion of blue sparks bloomed over the illuminated promenade. From above, the fan-shaped barrage was the spitting image of a star mine fireworks display. The bread men were reduced to a little more than charred cinders. We can do this. They have the advantage in numbers, but at this rate we'll escape. How's it look over there? It's clear. From here on, we should be able to make it to the eastern side of the entrance. But I won't let that happen. With a volley of bullets that would leave an average Magus breathless, the neophyte Magus pierced through the enemy formation. Meanwhile, a lone bird carefully observed the scene playing out in the amusement park below. Yup, that bird is probably one of Alice's familiars. Chirp, cheep, cheep, chirp. The bluebird let out a shrill tweet as it descended into view. Alice listened to the report dispassionately. It doesn't matter. I anticipated as much. Aoko may not have any talent outside of destruction, but the way she uses magical energy is second to none. Hastily constructed familiars were never going to pose much of a challenge to her. The little robin chirped and flopped its wings. Was it criticizing her for praising Aoko? Was it jealous of Aoko for being praised? Even she, its master, couldn't really understand what it was trying to say. Aozaki Aoko was an amateur. The difference in both aptitude and experience between her, who had only just become a Magus 2 years ago, and Alice, who was raised as a witch from the day she was born, was staggering. It was enough that, properly speaking, they couldn't really even be called opponents at all. In a competition of magical ability, Alice would win 10 times out of 10. However, a death match like this was another story altogether. Koenji Alice was not a Magus suited for battles, whereas Aozaki Aoko specialized in them. I love how the bird is moving this whole time, like the bird and the spotlights in the background. In a contest of pure magical energy, Aoko probably had the edge. After all, if she had one thing going for her, it was her ability to wield magical energy. Though the scale of her magic circuit was smaller than Alice's, its rotation speed, structural durability, output quality, and efficiency were all off the charts. It was her defining trait. She had no talent for sophisticated spells, but when it came to simple circulation formulas, she had already surpassed Alice in a mere 2 years. She caught on to things quickly and had excellent intuition. While she wasn't particularly good at using sorcery, she was terrifyingly fast. If she hadn't been born into the Aozaki family, she almost certainly would have made a name for herself as a genius sniper. It's too bad. Alice wouldn't have stood a chance if they fought face to face. She had never learned any primitive sorceries like magic bullets. No, she was a textbook puppeteer. In battle, she delegated everything to her familiars, who acted as her arms and legs. I'm sure you've noticed the time limit by now, Aoko. Go ahead and borrow all the magical energy you want, but know this, those bullets of yours will be worthless soon enough. Uh-oh. The robin twittered its agreement and took flight. It had only been a scant 10 minutes since this amusement park fell under Alice's control. Which begged the question, what horrors would the green fog give birth to in the 10 minutes to come? Down on the ground, Aoko and Sojiro would soon realize the true gravity of their situation. Yep. No escape. I think Alice is, or not Alice, but Aoko's pretty naive to think they're gonna get out of there. The gates are this way, right? Yeah, the exit is just around that shop. They had been running as fast as they could without rest going on 10 minutes now, and it was clearly starting to get to them. Their breath was ragged. Even though it was called an amusement park, in the end it was only Kitsy Land. If a high schooler went all out, they could make a lap around it in about 20 minutes. That's the sort of local amusement park it was, or at least it should have been, but... Magical balloons! More bread people? Well, that's how it was. Not only the park residents, but even the park itself was being transfigured. Aoko. What? I hate to ask this, but this place isn't getting bigger, is it? Yes. This wasn't anything so mundane as mistaking the location of the exit or getting thrown off by confusing terrain. Everything was being warped. All this time, the amusement park had been growing and evolving like a living being. Maybe that's because of that green shit. The green fog. Aoko. The noose around their necks had tightened another notch, and they hadn't even noticed. Entrusting her back to Sojiro, she did her best not to complain. It was alright if she was amazed and afraid, but she didn't have the luxury. She was the one who had gotten them into this situation, the one who had taken his hand. She couldn't just fall into a panic at the drop of a hat. It's okay, calm down, Aoko. This amusement park doesn't go on forever. It may be far away, but the fence is still there. Even the flat snark has its limit. Trying to escape is the right course of action. Oh, the green mist is called the flat snark. That's such a stupid name. Though, from the looks of things, there's still about 1 kilometer left to go. They had overdone it, running so fast for so long. Their lungs were burning. If they had tried to go another kilometer without stopping, they would probably collapse from exhaustion before they made it halfway. How are you holding up, Alco? Huh? She was snapped back to reality by a whisper from behind. I'm fine, but I think we should rest for a second to catch our breath. But the bread people, they'll get us. I agree. Going on without a break is a bad idea. That's a shock. We're actually on the same page for once. She couldn't help but laugh. Far from panicking, the comrade at her back had been calmly assessing the situation and thinking of how to escape. There's fucking flying pigs in the background. They're gonna get you. Why don't we take shelter in a building, just for a little while? Well, I don't like it, but I guess we don't have a choice. They were surrounded by breadmen. Holy shit, they got bigger. Or no, wait. There's fucking giant bread behind them, and then there's giant bread behind them, and then there's more breadmen in the background. Of course, that wasn't an issue. Things might be different from a normal person, but for Alco, breaking through an obstacle like that and getting to a shop would be a piece of cake. Or a piece of bread. The problem is figuring out which shop to choose. Now that's the important dilemma here. She considered the characteristics of the transfigured amusement park. What was dangerous and what was safe. The most important thing wasn't the building's strength or complexity, but rather... That's it. Simple as best. Sojiro, this way! She routed the creatures and dove behind a counter, with Sojiro hot on her heels. Get down! She used the counter for cover while she blasted away at the enemy, like she was in a shootout from a Western movie. Why me? Why do I have to hear this? That would suck if you were right next to that. It's kind of like machine gun fire. Bingo! Looks like this place is immune to snarkification? Bingo! Looks like this place is immune to snarkification. The snark is not strong here. The snark cannot get to us. We cannot become snarky. After making sure they weren't being followed, she sank back down behind the counter. Alco, those guys. They can't come in, so they're stamping their feet in frustration outside. Seeing the curious look on his face, she smiled at him and took a deep breath that was probably equal parts exhaustion and relief. Okay, let's take a coffee break. Even though we're still inside the amusement park, this spot is devoid of fun, which makes it forbidden ground for those guys out there. Everything from the register to the utensils is bland and modern, and there's no store mascot either. It's just a little too civilized for the snark to transform. The snark does not like civilized places. Snark? That's what they're called. Don't blame me. Alice is the one who came up with the name, allegedly. Personally, I find it hard to believe she'd think of something like that, but it is what it is. It's the snark tank. Maybe it was because the knowledge that they were safe here had calmed his nerves, but Sojiro was hanging on to her every word with an expression of rapt fascination, kept nodding gravely and saying he understood when he obviously didn't, brought a flicker of a smile to her lips. Normally, it would have only aggravated her, but right now, she was grateful for the warmth of his inexplicable sincerity. Setting that aside, you seem like you're feeling better. Mistaking her smile for composure, he broke into a broad grin of his own. It was the end of a long chain of misunderstandings, but she decided to let it slide. Oh, you're right. My bullets are getting stronger. I'm surprised you can tell. Well, you did chase me all around the Hall of Mirrors with those things. Of course I'd notice if they were getting scarier, whether I want to or not. But are you really okay? I'm sure you said something about there being a limit, and you've already used a lot more than 20 or 30 shots. Just when I think I've got you pegged. As much as it pained her to admit it, she had slightly revised her opinion of him. Don't worry about it. Anyway, the reason I'm getting stronger is because of the concentration of magical energy. You know that green fog that showed up a little while ago? Well, it's made entirely of mana. Think of it as fuel for my bullets. In general, there were two types of magical energy. The lesser source, Odd, which was generated with Amagus' body, and the greater source, Mana, which filled the atmosphere. Certainly, this amusement park had been transfigured into a fairy tale kingdom overflowing with mana. Or just a really... I would say like a twisted fairy tale. Like a Tim Burton fairy tale. For an ordinary person, that meant nothing, but for Amagus, it was a paradise where they could cast spells to their heart's content. In other words, this magical energy stuff isn't an issue, right? So we just need to watch out for injuries and stay on top of our stamina. Well, sure, if we're just talking personal responsibilities. Sojiro breathed a sigh of relief. From his point of view, Alko was more dangerous than any of the creatures in the park. He had been worried she might run out of bullets, but if that wasn't a problem, then he didn't see how anything could beat her. Except for Alice. I appreciate the vote of confidence, but it's a little premature. Those small fry out there are nothing more than walking garbage. There's still the Snark's main body to consider, and if Alice unleashes another fairy tale monster on top of that, we're screwed. Another fairy tale monster? You mean the thing that changed the park like this isn't the only one? That's right, they're called Ploy Kickshaw, aberrations that even we Magi find disgusting. Something ridiculous from a bygone era, capable of reproducing even the most impossible surreal fantasies. He was making an "isn't that the pot calling the kettle black" sort of face. Hey, I'm a proper modern Magus, you know. There are plenty of things we can't do, and we're obviously no match for modern weapons. Thanks to 20th century warfare pushing things forward, you guys finally have us outgunned. But that girl is different. She's a monster that doesn't care how much human technology advances. Take those breadmen, for instance. Something like an automatic pistol wouldn't have any effect on them, probably because they don't understand the meaning behind it. She suddenly looked back over the counter. So bullets wouldn't affect them because they don't understand the meaning behind the bullets. Alice's familiars are all mysteries needed from fantasy. I get the feeling that was some sort of innuendo or metaphor for the bread. Since they're impossible right down to their premise, they interact poorly with the normal laws of physics. After all, fantasy and reality are naturally incompatible. I guess that makes sense. Oh, I get it. When you say breadmen, you're talking about those walking loaves of bread. Oh, no shit. He ignored the bulk of her explanation and latched on to the part that had caught his fancy. Getting back to it, their compatibility with modern weaponry is the worst. Even a rocket launcher would be useless. They're incapable of reaching a mutual understanding or participating in our order. For Ploy Kickshaw, things that don't exist in their world, things they don't understand, they'll simply disperse without ever touching them. The only thing that can get through is the absurdity called magical energy, which is tinged with the same mystery as them. It's like they inhabit their own conceptual space, or rather, their own universe, and... I'm not following. Basically, they have a special property called folklore protection. Just hitting them hard or using a powerful spell won't do much. The only way to defeat them is to make use of the weak point from the fairy tale that they spawn from. Do you know the Greek myth of Achilles? He shook his head no. Oh, well, if we get out of this, ask Tobimaro about it. It's an oldie but goodie. Sojiro felt like he'd been left in the dust, but he tried to make sense of things in his own way. If he was following her correctly, she was saying that these so-called Ploy Kickshaw were monsters that even she and that puppet from the Hall of Mirrors couldn't compete with. Certainly, the scene playing out before his eyes was enough to make him think that he accidentally wandered into somebody's nightmares. But even so, I still think you're scarier than them, though. Do you want to die? See what I mean? Sojiro protested silently. Listen, the things that have us surrounded right now aren't the real threat. As far as Alice is concerned, the breadmen, that lobster, and even the meat grinder from that sausage shop, they're all worth less than my bullets. Do you get it? Those moving mascots are just a bonus to her. They're nothing more than the breath of the monster she unleashed here. Breath? All of that is just its breath? I know, I don't like it any more than you do. But that's our situation. We've got our work cut out for us just dealing with one fairy tale monster. If she adds another one on top of that, we might as well throw in the towel. How many of those things does she have anyway? If she's not being stingy, more than I care to think about. Of course, they all have their own individual quirks and restrictions. For example, there's one that won't wake up unless there's a river nearby. And even though this park has a lot of fountains, there's no river, right? So she can't use it. Her familiars are bound by the fairy tales that formed them. So the fairy tales are like kake soba. Really, the fact that there's no river here is a small blessing. If there was, a monster specialized in outright destruction would have reared its ugly head. I really wish I knew what fairy tale she was referring to with that. She completely ignored his interjection and kept going. Moving on. The foundation of Alice's sorcery is Mother Goose, which I guess you've never heard of, have you? It's a collection of rhymes from England filled with playful fairy tale-esque imagery and themes. The Ploy Kickshaw in that group aren't so bad, actually. One way or another, they can all be beaten with sorcery. I'm not sure I should ask, but when you say that group, does that mean there's another one? Maybe. There is, based on certain Mother Goose-inspired work that Alice's mother was a fan of. Each and every member of that group is abnormal. Even a Magus would beg forgiveness at the sight of them. And that thing that revived this amusement park is from that group. If I had to guess, I'd say it's the Flat Snark. Probably. I wasn't really paying attention myself, so I'm not sure about the details. He swallowed the dissatisfaction that was on the verge of slipping out of his mouth. Sure, he wished she would stop being so vague with all the this group and that group talk, but she had said something just now that required more urgent investigation. Wait a minute, Aoko. What do you mean you weren't paying attention? Well, she explained it all a long time ago. Back then, I didn't really believe what she was saying. I guess I thought she was just exaggerating, you know? Or that she was making light of me because I was a novice. Of course, the one who had been underestimating the other was Aoko. She wouldn't realize that the monsters protecting Alice were real until sometime after they met. And when that day came, she would learn firsthand why the Minster witches were heretics in the world of Magi. So, what exactly do you remember? Well, it's a ploy capable of constructing an incredibly powerful barrier. Of all the ploys that Alice inherited, it's among the best of the best. It takes the abandoned and forgotten and revives them as fairy tales, and it's never been defeated. Oh, and its nickname is the Unreachable. Huh? It's not Flat Snark? Flat Snark is a nickname too. That's the thing about the unknown. It tends to end up with a lot of names. Though as far as unidentifiable objects go, the Flat Snark is in a league of its own. Have you ever heard of Lewis Carroll's The Hunting of the Snark? Aoko, this guy is from a place where they have never read anything or had any electricity, and they only have farms. Why do you think that he would know any of this? He is like as far removed from society as possible. No, to begin with, who's Lewis Carroll? From there, huh? Let's see, he was a professor whose real name was Dodgson, a gentleman possessed of a singularly peculiar imagination, but none of that really matters right now. What's important is what he left behind. The Hunting of the Snark is the story of a group of adventurers who devote themselves to capturing an unidentifiable monster called the Snark. I've actually never heard of that one. I know who Lewis Carroll is, though, I just don't. I might have heard of that story once, but never read it. It's a truly Carroll-like book, smartly satirical, totally nonsensical, frustratingly cryptic, and without any real ending to speak of. These adventurers suffer through countless trials and tribulations on the Snark's Island, and while I do find it in the end, the baker, who makes the discovery, disappears without a trace. Oh, wait a minute. If he's a baker, maybe that's the reason for all the bread. It's a satire of people who spend their lives running around chasing after something they themselves don't fully understand. Of course, it should go without saying who the baker and the Snark are in this amusement park. Aoko didn't mention them, but the Flat Snark was also known by other names. The Inscrutable Island, the Fifth Dimensional Plane. They were not names uttered by Alice, but rather the incoherent ramblings of Magi who had been defeated by a Minster. The term Snark is used in graph theory to refer to a series of contradictory improbable planar graphs. A plane named despite being proven not to exist in this world, an unfortunate existence formed from a paradox. To date, not a single soul had been able to unmask the ploy Kickshaw crowned with that epithet. And there was one other thing Aoko neglected to mention. The Flat Snark was a monster that grew. Even now, its main body was hidden away somewhere, exhaling mana and bringing the park closer and closer to becoming a perfect fairy tale kingdom. Well, there's no point in scaring him. Did you say something? Nothing important. Anyway, to summarize, the Flat Snark's power is reviving the world of fairy tales. It has extraordinary compatibility with this amusement park, since it was a playground based on fairy tales from the start. If, for instance, they had been in the business district, the Flat Snark wouldn't have posed nearly as much of a threat. At most, it would only be capable of projecting shadowy images of dinosaurs onto window panes. Oh, so that's why you said the spot was safe. The only reason Sojiro noticed that was because a strange sticky fluid had suddenly dripped onto his back. Oh my god! I didn't know this was a horror game, Jesus Christ. What the fuck? Oh! He looked up at the ceiling. Their eyes met. Without a second thought, his butt shot up off the ground and... Aoko, get out! He jumped out from behind the counter on his own. Idiot, what are you... Aoko started to stand up, trying to stop him from committing suicide. As she did, she finally noticed what was being born above her head. The fuck is that? Is that supposed to be one of the mascots? Oh my god! Oh god. Well, she's dead. That was too close! An enormous mouth snapped shut with a crash. The burger shop with no mascot had been totally transfigured. Who the heck paints a picture of a clown on the ceiling? Seriously, who does that? If you love clowns so much, then decorate the entrance or something, damn it. Aoko fumed as she ran. There was no longer any respite here. The last faint flicker of civilization had been eroded away by fairy tales. Yeah, you spent too much time exposition dumping, Aoko. A fucking dragon? There's a dragon in this. And then there's Stay Puft Man. The snarkification of the amusement park had entered its final stages. It was not just the mascots that were coming to life. Like the burger shop, even the buildings were beginning to transform into living beings. The roller coaster that circled the park wriggled and squirmed like a Chinese dragon. Aoko and Sojiro stared up in blank amazement at the Ferris wheel that had swelled up until it was over 80 meters tall. As they did, a mass of bread men bore down on them, as if trying to hand out tickets. One for the Ferris wheel? We're good, thanks. Oddities swarmed in from every direction. No matter how many times she broke through their ranks, they simply reformed again as if nothing had happened. It was a never-ending battle of attrition. But that was only natural. Depletion of resources was a topic that almost never came up in fairy tales. It's no use, Aoko. They just keep coming. Look for the Snark's main body. Every ploy kickshaw has a vessel that acts as its main body. If we destroy that, we should be able to escape. Bullet barrage. You say that, but what exactly am I looking for? I already told you, didn't I? Ploy kickshaw are things that don't exist in reality. Look for something strange that wasn't here before, or something that isn't possible. That'll be the main body. Something strange? Like what? Seriously? Something like a living puppet or a flying go-kart or... Stay Puft Man? She froze in the middle of firing a bullet. As soon as she put it into words, she realized just how hopeless their situation was. The amusement park was overflowing with things like that. All of these oddities, transformed and moving on their own, couldn't possibly exist in reality. That's right, there's not a single thing here that isn't strange. Is it blending in with the crowd? She chewed on her lip and muttered to herself. No, it couldn't be. The flat snark was a barrier-erecting ploy. Given that it was fielding such a ridiculous number of familiars, the defensive abilities of the main body were probably low or close to non-existent. On top of that, it was based on a story about the unreachable unknown. It stood to reason that once it was discovered, it wouldn't take long for it to break down. In other words, if we find it, it's our win. Would something as fragile as that reality mingle with the small fry? I mean, it's true they say if you want to hide a leaf, you should hide it in the forest, but... Please destroy that horse head. It's horrifying, thank you. Of course. The snark would never risk appearing in front of Aoko. The chances of being blown away by a stray bullet were simply too high. Its main body would be somewhere where it could transform the park in relative safety. Still, it should be somewhere visible. The snark is the subject of a book. If it's not on the page at all times, it doesn't have the right to call itself a main character. The question was, where could that be? Thinking about it simply, the Ferris wheel was the safest choice, and it was a motif that symbolized amusement parks, but... what if we capture that girl? Her eyes widened at the sudden suggestion. It seemed that, just like her, Sojiro had been trying to think of a plan to get them out of this situation, in his own way. Yeah, but you can't fight Alice, she's gonna fucking destroy you. Her idea was a simple one. If they couldn't find the snark's main body, then why not just take out its master? Alice hadn't moved an inch from the clock tower. Even from here, they could see her moonlit silhouette. That's the absolute worst thing we could do. Even if we killed Alice, the flat snark wouldn't stop, and all this craziness would start to overflow into the outside world. Besides, I couldn't kill her even if I wanted to. I'd be lucky just to get her halfway there. A bread man, unable to let such a rancid accusation against its master stand, charged at them, and found itself summarily converted into toast. They pressed their backs together and caught their breath. With no plan to awaken from this nightmare and their prospects of escape dwindling by the moment, things were beginning to seem truly hopeless. On the other hand, perhaps sensing that their prey was weakening, the oddities had formed a ring around Aoko and Sojiro and watched them carefully. Would they drag them to a bakery and roast them? Would they take them to a butcher to mince them? Or maybe they would skewer them and parade them about on a merry-go-round, or set them a swing on a pirate ship full of spikes. After 2 long years of sleep, they burned with the desire to welcome their newfound guests. Hey, can I ask you something? What is it? And make it quick, I'm trying to think. Oh, it's just, I get what these guys are after, that much is obvious, but what about that girl? Does she enjoy that sort of stuff too? I doubt it. Their misanthropy comes from the amusement park's grudge and the flat snark's personality, right? Basically, all Alice's familiars are twisted in one way or another. But... Somehow, she couldn't deny that there were aspects of Alice that were frightening. That's good. So what were you thinking about? Did you figure out a way to end this? Sorry to get your hopes up, but I'm fresh out of ideas. It'll probably all stop once you die, at least. Don't say that. For now, let's run. Hey, wait, Sojiro! She couldn't believe what was happening. Sojiro, who until then had simply been following her around, suddenly grabbed her hand and started a madcap suicide charge through the fresh-baked legions of bread. Is he just going to fucking, like, knock them over? This is too much! How is this a reasonable response to the conversation we were having? How is any of this reasonable? She cursed at his uncharacteristic aggressiveness, but stuck with him nonetheless. There was no way he could break through so many enemies just by throwing his body at them. She quickly righted herself and cleared the path in front of him with bullets. I don't know, maybe if he strengthened his body with magical energy, he could break through all of them. I guess I don't even know how he's doing it right now, honestly. They broke into a sprint as they emerged from the encirclement. Now that they'd come this far, they had no choice but to go back to their original plan of escaping the park. But, setting that aside, what on earth were you thinking? Weren't you ready to give up before at the Hall of Mirrors? She honestly couldn't understand his reactions. This and that are different, okay? Don't worry about it, just run. Bullshit! She's trying to kill you for finding out our secret just like I did, isn't she? You're dead either way, how is it different at all? She didn't know why she was shouting about something like this, but she couldn't stop herself. It must have been irritation at the staggering amount of stupidity he showed by recklessly rushing at the breadmen. Or at least, that's what she told herself. Don't misunderstand, okay? We're escaping together, that's all. I'm going to try and kill you again tomorrow. If you valued your life, you'd be running away from me too. That has nothing to do with this. It's fine if you kill me, I just don't want it to be her. But why? Because she's a stranger. We've never even talked before. Huh? Her seething passions were extinguished in an instant. The anger, the rage against such a simple, trivial reason, it had all vanished, just like that. Because she's a stranger? So then, for Sojiro, being killed by somebody he knew was alright? Her face darkened into a scowl as she followed behind him. The more she learned about him, the less she understood. Yeah, Sojiro is definitely strange. Even being as ignorant as he is, he's still just a really weird person. From high atop the clock tower, the girl observed the growth of her familiar. Flat Snark, the savior of the discarded and abandoned. A wicked, vulgar fairy tale monster that offered a glimmer of hope to those fated to fade into obscurity before snatching it all away. It may have been under her control, but she still needed to keep a watchful eye on it to make sure it didn't indulge in any of its nastier vices. The Robin, having completed a lap around the now city-sized amusement park, relayed the current situation. Chirp, 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 chirp. I see, so they're heading for the perimeter. Aoko was probably prioritizing the boy's safety. Even if it was a fool's errand, once she decided to do something, she'd stick to her guns no matter what. How disappointing. Since it's her, I was sure she'd come to burn me up along with the clock tower. The bluebird chirped bitterly. Was it contradicting its master's portrait of Aoko? Or agreeing that there was no telling what a loose cannon like her would do? To an outside observer, it could be taken either way. You aren't bored, are you? The robin started at the sudden question. It chirped and flapped its wings in a fluster, as if it was trying to say, "No way, Jose!" It's surprisingly enthralling. Alright, this game has been a long time coming, so why don't we raise the stakes a little? Without changing her expression, she pulled out a small object. It was a dark gray Easter egg, ticking faintly from within. Though it couldn't compare to the flat Snark, the robin knew that in a one-on-one battle, this ploy kickshaw was as nasty as they come. Is that a fucking bomb? Go now. The extolling time is 20 minutes. As always, break apart modesty. With the witch's breath, the egg packed full of praises disappeared. Suddenly, a mighty wind blew through the amusement park. I don't need any help to kill them, it seemed to say. It was the lament of an enormous something, hiding in plain sight. Flying horses, again. Aoko and Sojiro kept running for the border between the amusement park and the outside world. The number of oddities impeding them had been steadily decreasing, and the eastern fence was now less than 300 meters away. In a stroke of luck, they had managed to avoid encountering any huge buildings. It would have been over right then and there if the Ferris wheel had blocked their path, but it seemed they had a little bit of time left before it came to life. The only things that had appeared were small fry that Aoko could easily blast away. If this keeps up, then maybe, just maybe. "We can make it," she said through gasping breaths. Since she was using the mana permeating the amusement park, her own magical energy supply was almost full. On top of that, the condition of her magic circuits was improving by the minute, so she should be able to pull off at least one full-power sorcery. Just then, she noticed something strange floating overhead. It was following behind Sojiro at an angle, while maintaining a constant height of 3 meters. "Sojiro, there's..." "I know, it's been there for a while." He must have noticed it before Aoko, because he was already eyeing it warily. Well, it was sticking to him like glue after all. It would be stranger if it didn't bother him. "It's a giant egg!" Size-wise, it was about 1 meter in diameter. The tiles on its surface pulsed with a multitude of dancing lights. It looked like... "An egg?" Sojiro murmured uncertainly. "An egg? If it's an egg, we just have to break it." "Yeah, that's not gonna work." "Deflect." Her shots bounced off the egg like it was made of rubber. That peculiarity, the way it casually nullified any interference, left no doubt. This was a ploy kickshaw. "Damn, so it can't be broken by a foreign rule. I was afraid of that. Sojiro, whatever you do, don't take your eyes off that thing. Keep looking at it no matter what, even if it's only with the corner of your eye. You can't let it out of your sight." "Huh?" She sped up as she instructed him. That thing was literally an egg that broke. A man-shaped egg that sat on a wall. It's Humpty Dumpty? Nothing that anybody said or did could make him fall, but as soon as nobody was looking, he tumbled down and shattered into pieces. And all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. It was a rhyme from Mother Goose. Another one of Mother Goose's rhymes. Alice uses all her spells based on Mother Goose rhymes, so I guess that makes sense. If that egg's target was Sojiro, then it would fall down and explode the instant he looked away. Well, I can't say for sure if it'll actually explode or not. Whatever happened though, it definitely wouldn't be good. And she was also worried about the egg-like shape, ornamental gait, and inscriptions. Every egg hatched, eventually. Even if you watched it like a hawk, it was only a matter of time until something came out. They didn't have the luxury of conserving their energy anymore. "Hey, isn't that a little fast? If you overdo it, you'll..." "Don't worry about what comes next. Just focus on that egg." Taking advantage of the egg's arrival, a fresh batch of breadmen approached to block their path. "Move it!" She mowed down the largest battalion of breadmen yet with more firepower than ever before, but... no effect. Man, they're stronger than before. "So you're hard-baked, huh? Oh, God. I'll put you into a high-powered oven." Snap wasn't working, so she shot off a draw with her crest. It was a formula-backed bullet cased in a jacket of air pressure. If her shots up until now had been machine gun fire, then this was an artillery shell. The hard-baked bread somebody misspelled that. The hard-baked breadmen that had endured the simple magical energy of Snap were blown to bits by Draw's torrent of sorcery. Yeah, you don't want to get on her bad side. Whoa. Of course, the destruction didn't stop there. The surface of the brick path was stripped away, and the nearby shops were reduced to steel-framed skeletons. The devastation made Sojiro more than a little worried that Aoko would eventually cut off their escape route more effectively than a wall of breadmen ever could. Hey, wait, why are you backing up? It's dangerous if you don't stay right by me, you know. Seriously, get over here! If they surround you, you're a goner. Hostages are meaningless to me, and my aim's not good enough to pick out friend from foe anyway. Sojiro nodded. He didn't understand what she meant about hostages, but he got what she was trying to say. "Hey, you took your eyes off the egg." In other words, it's dangerous for me everywhere, huh? You. He said something hurtful with trademark obliviousness. But she couldn't be too mad. After all, his diligence was admirable. Even in the midst of all that carnage, his gaze stayed firmly fixed on the egg above his head. That's one less thing to worry about. You may be slow on the uptake, but at least you follow directions well. Uh-huh. Anyway, Aoko, it might just have been my imagination, but were those breadmen just now tougher than before? Yeah, they're getting stronger little by little. Maybe they decided mass production was going well, and it was time to focus on quality. You must have realized by now, but now that even the breadmen have started to assert their individuality, things are only going to get harder from here on out. The difficulty level just ramped up. I hate to consider it, but they could show up covered with jam or garnished with lettuce or even fused together. So they'll turn into sandwich men. Her eyes said that she was only half joking. In light of the relentlessly worsening situation, Sojiro once again felt a wave of horror wash over him. Then, sooner or later, they'll be as scary as the puppet in the Hall of Mirrors? I'm sure of it, and even I would have had trouble dealing with rare bread like that on my own. Do you really think you'd stand a chance? He grimaced and shook his head. Right, so let's hurry up. We can't afford to waste any more time. She took a quick deep breath and went back to running. It was about 300 meters to the iron fence, just barely visible through the fog. If all went well, they would make it there in one piece. Clinging to that naive hope, Sojiro started running after her. You're all going to die here. The breadmen will bake you. However, hope is by its very nature fleeting. In their case, it lasted but a mere 300 meters, for you see, at the end of the amusement park was quite literally the end of the world itself. It's just like just a void of nothingness at the end. No, the city's still there. They just can't get to it, I guess. Oh, it's a gate. Many gates, actually. Oh, shit. Oh my god. Dozens of horizons billowed and rolled like a mass of clouds or thick curtains. Or perhaps groaning lips. It was almost too bizarre, even for something out of a fairy tale. The terminus of this world. It's like the last board of an enormous Kamishibai? It's like the last board in an enormous Kamishibai. The second she saw it, Aoko's mind went blank. It's over. We're done for. Gazing upon those undulating boundary lines, she finally gave in to this island of despair, to the Snark. When are we actually going to see the Snark? The amusement park did not have an end. The iron fence separating the park from the residential district was still there even now. Something tells me the Ferris wheel is going to turn into the Snark, because the Snark is going to be huge. It was twice as high as it had been, and sturdier too, but that was within her expectations. She had accounted for the possibility of snarkification, and came to this far ready to blast away one or two extra walls if she had to. However, what stood before them now could no longer be considered a mere boundary. It was an ocean dividing this reality from the world outside, and fences were its waves. If it had been one or two, she could have broken through easily. Even 10 or 20 would be manageable. By combining the rest of her magical energy with the magical energy filling the park and straining her crest and circuits to their breaking points, she would be able to, just once, exceed her limits and recreate the miracle of the 10 Commandments. But that wouldn't be it. After parting the sea, she wouldn't have the energy to stand. It was all too clear what would happen next. She'd been wreaking havoc around the amusement park all night. There was no way its residents would forgive her. They would swarm around her immobile body like ants and rend her limb from limb. Faint regret panged through her disappointment and fatigue. Escaping from the amusement park had been the wrong decision. Recognizing that, she looked back at the way they came. Oh shit. Steel frames twisted and converged like wirework beneath the golden moon. It was only a matter of time before the amusement park itself transformed into an enormous monster. Alice's Plaza was crawling with familiars and unapproachable. The Whispering Egg, Scratch Dumpty, was still shuffling its surface around above Sojiro's head. Aoko! Huh? A voice moved her frozen thoughts, but it was only for an instant. As a Magus, she felt the full weight of their predicament. That despair had robbed her of all will to resist. Let's head for the gate. We're stuck here, but we might have better luck there. This flat Snark, was it? You said it had rules to follow, right? So, it comes down to rolls. A fence was always going to be impossible to get through, but the gate may still work. Not only was he panicking, he was able to catch on to the Snark's unique characteristics in this situation. She was honestly impressed. Her waning resolution reignited. You're right, there's always the gate. But getting there would be nearly impossible. Even the weakest familiars, the bread men, are formidable now, and there are bound to be more powerful enemies stationed at the plaza and entrance. And the entrance that has the giant Kitsy-chan ride, it might be a bigger monster than the Ferris wheel. So you won't go? What can I say? This way is more practical. She glanced at the undulating fences. It was already impossible for her to achieve her goal of escaping alive. That was why she had decided to prioritize her other promise. I'll destroy these fences and you'll run outside. Then my job is done. She hadn't said much, but her voice said everything. She was telling him to escape alone. I don't believe you. There's no way you can destroy this on your own. On my own, no. But right now, this amusement park is my ally. With this much fuel, all I have to do is be the barrel. I'll be strong enough, don't worry. Though, we won't get another chance at this, so as soon as I make the hole, run like your life depends on it. Carving a path through the sea. It would be her masterpiece, an ultimate long-range bullet backed by a lengthy incantation and every ounce of power she could muster. A layman like Sojiro couldn't even begin to fathom what a burden that was. He simply saw a vague image of Aoko left behind in the park. What would happen to her? Would she be rescued by the girl in black? No, cruel as it was, she wouldn't. After doing so much to help Sojiro, she wasn't going to get any mercy. The only way Alice would spare Aoko is if Aoko killed Sojiro herself to save her own life. And back up about 20 meters. It'll take some time to set up, but it should be ready before that egg is done cooking. That obviously wasn't going to happen. Wait a minute. Will letting me go here really accomplish anything? Probably not. Even if you make it outside, I doubt you'll be able to escape from Alice. Just consider this my last bit of stubbornness. I said I'd protect you, so I'll be damned if I don't get you as far as I can. Once again, he was stunned by her strength of will. In other words, she wasn't fighting for his sake, but for her pride. Yeah, you did say that. But in that case, sending me off on my own isn't like you. What are you talking about? Back up already, would you? For some reason, Aoko pulled away. She remembered how this face had gotten the best of her just an hour earlier. If you still have it in you to be stubborn, let's keep fighting. If you're strong enough to destroy this monstrous fence, there should be a better target somewhere else. There isn't. I'm sorry, but I can only destroy what I can see. I'm not going to die clinging to a hopeless pipe dream. So forget about the flat snark, okay? Tearing down this wall and letting you out of my hair is the most I can do. Will you escape? He grabbed her hand as she tried to turn away. Her heart seethed. A fire burned in her breast. Shock and shame thawed her frozen limbs. Why you? Who the hell do you think you are? Did you forget who's letting you go here? I'll blow up this whole damn park if I have to. Good, then there's no reason for me to leave. Save that motivation for when we really need it. I'll help you until then. Help? You? Don't make me laugh. I'm telling you, you're going to escape here, idiot. What can a guy who's out of his breath from running around do anyway? Yeah, I'll admit I'm exhausted. But what about you? Aren't you injured? She'd almost forgotten about that herself. The spot the puppet hit still hurt too much to ignore, but her steely self-control had allowed her to put off thinking about it until now. See? If you take sorcery out of the equation, I'm better off than you are. Maybe I should carry you to the entrance on my back? Don't make promises you can't keep. Seriously, though, it's fine. Go. I'm used to this sort of thing, but you're not. You don't have to stay. Her words were heavy. Even if they cooperated, in the end, she would have to kill him. This was for the best. However, not only did he not let go of her hand, he squeezed it tighter. She frowned. Is he angry? His expression is the same as ever, but... You're right. This is the first time I've experienced anything like this. But the mountains had their own share of dangers. I was even attacked by a deer once, you know. A deer? It was really scary. I would be more afraid of bears, honestly. As someone from the city, she honestly didn't know if that was supposed to be impressive or not, but she could sense that his determination was real. Certainly. Looking back on it, he'd kept his wits about him this whole time. A normal person in this situation would have been panicking and incoherent, but somehow he had managed to keep himself under control. Was it because he was raised away from civilization? So please, trust me, even if it's just a little. After telling her how he felt, he finally let her go. His words didn't contain a hint of dishonesty, but was exactly why she couldn't believe them. There was no reason for him to go so far for her. She had already confessed that she had no future and told him to escape. So why? Why was he still saying he'd cooperate? I don't get it. What's in this for you? If you stay with me, you'll die. I'll give you one last chance to reconsider. You should run away now, if you know what's good for you. I know that, but I refuse. As he answered, he realized what she really wanted to know was why, with perception that would have been truly applause-worthy coming from his usual self. If I leave you here, you'll die. He spouted off something as unreasonable as ever. I'm asking you why you care, she shouted in irritation. After a moment's thought, he answered, Well, it's probably because I like you. Easily, with a face that wondered why she would even ask him that. That's impossible. 1 or 2 seconds passed. To Aoko, who had just been blindsided, it felt like an eternity. Apparently, Alice wasn't the only one keeping an ace up her sleeve. His response was even harder to come to terms with than the flat snark. All she could do was stand there staring in blank amazement. It was the most powerful reason on Earth, simple and unyielding. Huh. She still didn't understand how he could cooperate unconditionally with somebody who was trying to kill him. But she did feel like she had a slightly better grasp of his personality. As much as it pained her to admit it, Tobimaro and everybody else at school had probably been right about him all along. Idiot, even though I don't like you. She muttered petulantly, but the boy just smiled and said he knew. Man, Sojiro is pretty... He doesn't get fazed by girls saying they don't like him. He's happy to have it be a one-sided relationship, I guess. The clash of wills ended. Hot blood coursed through her veins, ignited by the fire in her heart. If he was going to go and make a face like that, she had no choice but to get them both out alive. Whatever, running away isn't really my style anyway. Okay, fine, I'll stick it out until the end, and as long as you're here, I'm sure I'll think of something for you to do too. She put on a brave face, but doubt still flickered in her eyes. It was only natural. Without knowing the flat snark's true form, it was impossible to fight it. If she had been a little more skillful, a little more experienced, then maybe she could have figured it out, but... What about that egg? Sojiro has long since stopped looking at that egg. I'm pathetic. If I just had something to work with, some clue about its identity. That Chinese dragon is just flying around everywhere. Without realizing it, she gave voice to her misgivings. Complaining like this wouldn't change anything. It was up to her to figure out... Is that all you need to know? Huh? She shot him a what is that supposed to mean sort of look. Well, you said to look for something strange, right? He replied, clearly wondering why she didn't say something earlier. Wait, you found it? I think so. It's actually been bothering me for a while. He leaned over and whispered into her ear, making sure nobody would overhear. Wait, you'll see my dick. As soon as he said it, she instinctively knew that he was right. It was so obvious in retrospect. The enemy's true form, the flat snark's main body. In a word, it was... Ferris wheel. It has to be the Ferris wheel, right? That's what I was guessing. I hope I'm right. There's no other possibility, in my opinion. The hell's with the ticking? Fuck was that? Their private conversation lasted 10 minutes. After coming up with a plan to attack the Snark's main body, they gave each other a quick nod to confirm they understood their respective roles. Alright, we'll split up here. Try not to mess up like last time. You're the crux of this whole operation. If you stumble right out of the gate again, we're screwed. She cheerfully needled Sojiro about his failure in the Hall of Mirrors. Ever since he shared his discovery, she was back to her usual self. Meanwhile, Sojiro was serious as he could be. He earnestly took Aoko's warning to heart. You'll do fine. Just remember our positions are reversed this time. If you fail, you'll be the one that dies, not me. I won't be there to protect you, so stay on your toes. I know, it's a little late, but I'm being careful. So careful, I wish I could escape when I had the chance. He nodded, as if to say, leave it to me. Though his words were bitter, it seems he was showing his resolve in his own way. Aoko sighed, defeated. There was just no understanding him. Honestly, I can't tell if you're amazing or an idiot. Probably the latter. Either way, I'm counting on you. Don't let me down, Sojiro. She had wanted to tell him she believed in him, but apparently that was too embarrassing. She's not daring enough for that. She turned around and started running. thinking that maybe sometimes it wasn't so bad to have her pace thrown off like this. Now it's up to Sojiro. Why are we relying on Sojiro? That is not a good idea. And so, the intermission draws to a close. The young actors have received their new scripts. Whatever the outcome, it seems the Night of the Witches has, at long last, entered its final act. Oh, is that it? Don't tell me that's it. Okay, I was afraid. I was like, don't let that be the end of this chapter. Don't leave me hanging like that. Those two have split up. The girl was troubled by the Robin's report. Apparently, Aoko and Sojiro had both run off in opposite directions. The park's residents were currently in pursuit of the boy, and he should be caught and dealt with within a few minutes. Are you sure that the one they're chasing is really him? It's not Aoko in disguise? Yeah, he disguised himself as Sojiro. He disguised himself as Sojiro. Because that's easy. Well, maybe he can do that with magic. The Robin shrugged and brushed off its master's doubts. It had confirmed it with its own eyes. Aoko was heading towards the plaza, while the cocky youngster was fleeing to the roller coaster. So you're saying Aoko has abandoned him? If that's all, there's nothing to be worried about. Is Dumpty still on his tail? The Robin nodded enthusiastically. Unlike other birds, its night vision was impeccable. It could even spot that gullible-looking brat from here, though that was mostly because he was climbing up above the crowd. And its status? It says it wants permission to sing to the end, since it may never have another chance to regale such a peerless idiot. Scratch Dumpty was a time bomb that would fall to the ground and explode the instant its acquired target took their eyes off it. Or, to put it another way, it was a gentlemanly ploy kickshaw that wouldn't drop as long as the target watched it diligently, though on a confused battlefield there was nothing more annoying. Yes, Dumpty can't be escaped merely by refusing to look away. When the poem on its surface is complete, the door will open. No matter how far he runs, he'll be captured soon enough. His only chance at escape was the destruction of the Snark, which meant the one she should really be worried about was Aoko. Where on earth was she going after declaring that she would protect him? You're not going to be able to track Aoko's movements by lazing around here. The girl looked out over the amusement park, disregarding the Robin's desperate attempts to justify its existence. The Flat Snark's development would soon be finished. It was a far different monster from those other cheap ploys. For her, it was one of her three great, irreplaceable familiars. I'm leaving it to you, Snark. As long as Aoko doesn't give up, you don't hold back either. The girl settled into her perch. The Flat Snark was one of the supreme ploys, possessing the same history as the Thames Troll and Wandersnatch. Wandersnatch. She had decided to trust in that venerated ability. But don't forget, this is a game. You're to return here as soon as the outcome is decided. The drifting fog paid no attention to its master's words. Alice had miscalculated. Even among the ploy, the Flat Snark was the vilest, most vulgar of them all, killing the defeated, enacting cruel tragedies. It felt no pleasure unless it could rob its victims of both life and wealth, and watch them fall into utter ruin. The fog billowed in a way that could almost be mistaken for wicked laughter. Yes, deciding how to deal with a defeated opponent was the king's prerogative. The Snark could not contain its excitement, because, even under orders from its master, it didn't have the slightest intention of playing by the rules. Oh, the Snark sounds rather snarky. Oh god, she's going up the roller coaster. 40 meters above the ground. I thought they'd all turned into dragons. A lone figure carefully made its way up the rails, stretching out toward the center of the park. I could not do that. I'm fucking terrified of heights. He did his best to steady his breath and heart rate. Right now, even those insignificant movements would hinder his advance. Oh my god, Sojiro's got some balls, I'll give him that. I could not do that shit. That is way too high up. The one aiming at this sickeningly high place was none other than Shizuki Sojiro. He looked back at the horde of fresh-baked bread men gathered around the roller coaster's loading platform. They scrambled over themselves in ever-growing numbers, raising their arms to cheer on his climb. Or rather, they booed at him to come down. Thank goodness. Looks like those guys can't handle heights. Of course, he wasn't very good with heights either, but it was better than being swarmed. Yeah, that's true. I think if I was threatened by some fucking living bread creatures, I'd probably climb up there too. I kind of want to know what they would do if they caught you, though. Like, how would they kill you? They're bread. They're made of bread. Like, what would they do? The only thing following him now was the floating egg. He took a deep breath, leaned forward a bit, and continued climbing the rails that seemed to stretch off into the heavens. I could not climb that, especially not while looking at the egg. Like, how could you? You wouldn't know where you're going. He was already 48 meters above the ground. Fuck that shit. It was the equivalent of a 14-story building. Oh my god. Ugh! Strong winds whipped at his hair. Man is a creature that fears heights at a base primal level. In a place like this, where it was all too easy to imagine falling, knees would begin to quake on their own. Instincts, on guard against death, begged to return to the safety of solid ground. It was only natural. Climbing the rails of a roller coaster unassisted went beyond joking, into the realm of pure fantasy. But we are surrounded by fantasy. Interference from air pressure and buffeting winds. An overwhelming desire to stop. Numb limbs, weak muscles, and incoherent thoughts. Even with a lifeline, just climbing up 5 meters was enough to paralyze the mind with dread. What's more, this torment increased geometrically. With each successive meter, the toll on the mind and body grew ever greater. Okay, just a little further to the top. Setting aside the mental burden, Sojiro advanced while carefully monitoring the state of his body. After running for so long, he felt like his legs could give out at any second. That was probably why Aoko had warned him that his role would be the riskier one. This was clearly too dangerous for somebody on the verge of collapsing from exhaustion. Wait, if you turn it around, that means she thought it'd be alright if I wasn't tired. Gazing at the lazily floating egg, he smiled to himself and reminisced about the course of events that had led to this ridiculous situation. About the conversation he'd had with Aoko just 10 minutes earlier. Okay, next order of business. Now that we know the Snark's identity, let's talk about how to destroy it. Aoko was beaming, a fact which sent chills down Sojiro's spine. Which it always should. Looking back, it was clear that she was already planning to make him do something unreasonable. What do you mean, how? Isn't that obvious? If she had a sorcery that could break all the way through this fence, then what was there to talk about? The only reason he hadn't said anything about the Flat Snark's main body earlier was because he thought that even if she knew about it, there was nothing she could do. But now, things were different. Aoko could literally do the impossible. Not as obvious as you think, just eyeballing it, my range is short by about 50 meters. So it's useless then. Sojiro's eyes communicated his unspoken complaint. In response, Aoko charged her finger with magical energy and cleanly snipped off a tuft of her own hair. Why? If something's lacking, you just have to make up for it with hard work, right? All you need to do is get as high up as you can, wait for my signal, and throw this into the air. Though it sounded like she was leaving things up to him, she had clearly already had something in mind. Her gaze was fixed squarely on the roller coaster, one of the two main attractions of the park. Basically, you're telling me to split up with you and escape to a high place on my own, all while being chased by those monsters? That's the long and short of it. Say, doesn't that roller coaster rail look perfect? There were two devils in this amusement park. Even Sojiro wanted to refuse when he saw the way she was smiling. I don't want to doubt you, but are you sure you're not secretly working together with that girl to get me killed? Oh, and here I thought you said you were fine with being killed by me. Well, at this rate, he's gonna get killed by falling from a really high place. It's not nice to use things people didn't mean to say against them. He hung his head. This is crazy. If he did what Aoko said, he'd drop dead from exhaustion before he got eaten by Kitty-chan. Hey, I'm not some kind of ogre, you know. Come here, I'll put a charm on you. Is this supposed to does it prevent us from falling, maybe? A delicate sensation. Breath mingling with breath, skin brushing against skin. Okay. What is this? Ow! He couldn't finish. For one of them, it was a common, unremarkable sorcery. While for the other, it was a mind-blowingly tender surprise attack. Lightly, weakly, aptly, quickly. Tick-tock, hurry, hurry. A voice possessed of some peculiar weight, unpronounceable by normal vocal cords, reverberated in Sojiro's ears. If her words had a color, it would surely be the color of her name. His tired body and burning blood slowly began to cool. Flying, swimming, running, leaping. Tick-tock, blow the whistle. The stars shine in the northern sky, always and forever. It lasted 5 seconds, though to Sojiro, who had been caught off guard by her touch, it felt a little longer. And then it was sadly, unmistakably over. Okay, I think it worked. I actually got a response for once. I guess Alko's scolding can actually come in handy sometimes. The only thing that could match Alko's elation was Sojiro's confusion. What was that all about? It was a simple suggestion. I temporarily erased your fear, so you shouldn't have any problem with heights. After all, your biggest obstacle up there is nerves, right? If you can't feel fear, then no matter how high you get, it's no different than walking on a balance beam. What fuckery is this? I see, he nodded, clapping his hands together naively. What she was saying was questionable at best, but Sojiro had swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. I guess that makes more sense. She magically got rid of his fear. Huh, finally made it. What's with all the balloons? The peak of the arching rail. He looked down over the amusement park from a height of almost 60 meters above the ground. He spotted Alko immediately, working on something suspicious in a nearby plaza. Her surroundings were calm. The breadmen were all occupied with chasing after him, and had gotten stuck at the roller coaster's entrance. Oh, so he was the distraction. Okay. There was already more than 100 meters between them. It's no wonder I'm soaked, moving around this much. Though the fierce winter winds dried his brow, beneath his shirt his body was slick with sweat, a testament to the night's exertions and its horrors. Still, I'm glad. All that's left is to wait for the signal. Relief welled up from the bottom of his heart. It wasn't because this plan would allow Alko to destroy the Snark. He was just happy to pay back the favor he had received in the Hall of Mirrors, even a little bit. And goodbye, Snark. A blue firework shot up from the plaza. There it is. He stepped up onto the rail, removed a small drawstring pouch from his pocket, and tossed it into the wind. It was a magnificent overhead pitch, without any regard for footing. The pouch arced toward Alko and came undone in the sky. Inside was a bit of her hair, and a small stone added for weight. Get it into the wind from a high place, and I'll take care of the rest. That had been the extent of Alko's instructions. Everything else was Sojiro's idea. The tufts of hair drifted through the air as if watching over their owner. Why are they blue? His job was over. Hey, you're not looking at the egg. He was still worried about the floating egg, but there was nothing more he could do. Breathing a sigh of relief, he leaned forward to watch what happened next, and... Out of the corner of his eye, he could almost swear he had seen an all too familiar something making its way towards the plaza. Uh-oh. It's Snark time, baby. Did someone call for the Snark? Route set. Uh-oh. Shit's about to get real. I have my incantation circle. Direct current formation, first layer, second layer, third layer in reserve. Anchoring magical energy supply to the greater source. Circulation okay, firing angle okay, formula stability acceptable. A strange pattern shimmered over the brick path. An unprecedented incantation preceding the execution of an unprecedented sorcery. Containing the faint tightness and fluttering in her chest, the novice magus cracked her fingers. Loading, converging, projecting bullets, star mine. Kneeling in the center of the formula, Alko stared up at the sky. The transformed amusement park no longer concerned her. The only thing reflected in those blue eyes was the unreachable. Actually, there's something that's been bothering me for a while. A few minutes earlier, opening with that, Sojiro had pointed out a certain fact. It really was a simple inconsistency. The biggest difference between the reality of an hour earlier and now was also the smallest. I thought I might be wrong because of the clouds, but something you wouldn't notice even if you saw it. Something that couldn't exist, whose very presence here was strange. In this amusement park immersed in fantasy, boldly displaying such a mundane form. The moon? Oh, it's a new moon tonight, Alko. So they're going to, what, destroy the moon? Now that I think about it, you must have been in that form from the start. The distance to the moon was 380,000 kilometers. Jesus Christ. If it was the same for that thing, it would truly be a monster worthy of its name. But if that was the case, there would be no need to hide. It could brazenly reveal itself without consequence. The fact that it hid itself meant that it could be reached. That monster's transformation was proof that it could be reached by the hands of man. My effective range is still only 600 meters, though. now that things had come this far, she had no choice but to go all in. She would mobilize every last ounce of magical energy the park had to offer and extend the reach of her shot. High-powered beam! The blue firework rose into the sky. Aoko looked up at her hair, fluttering in the wind, and raised her right arm as if grasping at empty space. For Magi, their own bodies made for first-rate catalysts, and for female Magi in particular, hair that was cultivated over many years became an especially powerful and precious fuel. To use it, simple desire was sufficient. She clenched her open hand into a fist and... Layer 3, deploy. Begin connection to all formulas. It's like I'm watching a mecha anime. Unit 1, launch! She issued a clear challenge to the moon. We're going to blow up the moon. And the moon accepted. Fog swirled. In response to the magical formula that had appeared in the air below, the monster high in the sky bared its fangs. She finally figured it out. By the time Alice noticed the change, both Aoko and the Snark were showing clear hostility toward each other. Maybe the Snark is this fog. Maybe that's what this is. I see. If it's Aoko's wind then. Return immediately, Snark. I know erasing rain clouds was giving her too big a hint, but I'm sure you can understand. Snark? The buildup of fog didn't stop. The moon floating in the sky would not tolerate the magician's insolence. Not only did she disrespect him, the king of the night, she would openly defy it. Its range was uncontainable. Snark! Brushing away the robin that had shown up in a panic to report the situation, the girl stared at the transforming golden moon. Oh my god. It ignored her attempts to rein it in. Nothing would stop the fairy tale monster from bringing down the full brunt of its fearsome might on the tiny prey. The bullet's core groaned. The circuits inside her body spun. Scorching her nerves with imaginary flame, Aoko circulated magical energy. She was linked to the formula carved into the ground. The loading and execution was the same as ever, but the output was incomparable to anything she tried before. Even if the process hadn't changed, with this much firepower, she was putting herself at risk. There was a very real possibility her nerves would burn away completely. But I can do it. The amount of imaginary heat was almost scary. Her body trembled from the bottomless sensation, but then there would have been no meaning in choosing this strategy if it didn't. Moving was no longer an option. When Sojiro pointed out the moon's true colors, she had decided right then and there to throw away her mobility and become entrenched artillery instead. It was the only way to reach it. Without fixing her crest in this position, in this angle, the hunting of the Snark would be impossible. But at the same time, it meant she had no plan B. Once the fuse was lit, she would have to fight from this position until the bitter end. Accepting this, she drew in a breath. Her preparation was perfect. She would deliver this rocket-like maelstrom of magical energy directly to the moon. She took aim through the third layer floating in the air, which acted as a muzzle to expel the magical energy after it went critical, as well as a sight to adjust the angle of fire. Fog? Suddenly, her target distorted. Now you can't see the moon, and you can't hit it. As if sneering at Aoko's efforts, the golden moon revealed itself. Now look into the sky, ye of average, guileless blood, for there lies a fragment of the heavens, and a divine mystery wreathed in emerald fog and azure cloud. Renowned as the most cherished treasure of the magic world, worth more than an entire kingdom, the supreme fantasy, crowned phantasm. That's the flat Snark. It's a cloud? Split off from the first, it is the greatest fiction in this world. It's a skull cloud. Too soon. It's still too soon, but... Her instincts were screaming. She couldn't delay any longer. The enemy was exposed, but it was still a top-class fairy tale monster. If it was showing open hostility, even in this situation, that meant it could counterattack at any moment. I can't move. With an incantation this large, escape isn't an option. If I'm attacked first, that's the end. So she just had to shoot it down before that happened. Her magical energy was at 80%, and the formulas were operating normally. The only thing left was to pull the trigger, but... She hesitated. Was this really okay? Once she started, there was no going back. There would be no room for error, no time to regret a lapse in judgment. A moment's hesitation would mean certain death. Was she ready for the pain? Was she ready for the pain? Could she deal with making a mistake? To begin with, was shooting down the moon with such a tiny bullet even possible? Oh, whatever. I'll think about it after I'm done. Her eyes fixed on the moon, filled with determination. Aware that the instant she fired, tremendous feedback would assail her entire body. Oh, shit. Okay, no holding back. Time to give it my all. The sniper, aiming at the sky, fired her ultra-long-range shot with all the spirit she could muster. Bring the moon down! Nuclear blast! This is so ridiculous. The third layer embraced the bullet arriving from the ground. The crest, which was an extension of Alco herself, unleashed the torrent of light to pierce the moon. But... oh my god. What the fuck is that shit? I sent down an asteroid to stop you. An enormous blue canopy smashed the light. Ether, burning with the heat of a 3,000 degree flame, was instantly returned to nothing. Her blood boiled from the recoil of using a grand sorcery far beyond her limits. Stopped heart, paralyzed brain, withering nerves. Her crest forcibly revived them all. Ice. It blocked it with ice? Even through dazzled vision, she knew what she had seen. She swallowed the blood filling her mouth and glared upward. There. As if to taunt her, the twisted, wicked skull was using an enormous boulder of ice as a shield. Damn it, I was too late, or was I too soon? Would it have worked if I attacked before it could make a shield? Or was it attacking head-on too rash to begin with? Whatever, it doesn't matter. First layer, second layer, reload, hurry! There was no time to think, no room for hesitation. The magical energy within the amusement park was being collected. On one side was Alco, on the other, the dominating face of the moon. Her intuition told her that the boulder of ice was not yet complete, which meant that the flat Snark 2 had yet to reach its limit. That was precisely why. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it! The acceleration of the formula tore at her body. Since they were linked, increasing the load on one naturally caused friction with the other, but she had to endure it. Because that ice is way out of my league. After just one shot, she understood the gap in their abilities. Their magical energy may have been the same, but the strength of the mysteries they wielded was far too different. As things stood, even if she charged herself to the absolute limit, she would only barely be able to punch through that block of ice. Which meant that if the Snark reached its own limit, she would be crushed without a doubt. Then, before that, she loaded the next bullet and reprogrammed the third layer. Disregarding the strain on her body, she accelerated the first layer. The function of the first layer was to collect and store magical energy from her surroundings. She gathered the dense fog engulfing the amusement park, the primeval ether spewed up by the flat Snark itself, and pumped it into the formula. Ravioli, ravioli, give me the formuloli. Of course, her body screamed out in agony at magical energy that far exceeded its capacity. Or rather, it quivered in ecstasy. For Magi, magical energy was a propellant that allowed them to attain mysteries. Expansion of subjective time, melting of the ego, liberation from the physical form. It was essentially a near-death experience. Alco stood at that fragile boundary and stared reality in the eye. Oh man, that thing's gonna destroy everything. In the face of that reality, her will to endure the pain began to break. The difference between them would be clear to anyone. The barrel called Aozaki Alco couldn't even scratch that ice. It hurts. She accelerated the formation even further. The skull laughed. The boulder of ice was not a shield. It existed solely to squash the insolent Magus that didn't know her place. But it wouldn't end there. The boy atop the roller coaster, the entire park itself, they would all fall before its might. Why? Her circuits were on the verge of going critical. The charge was enough to burn her eyes, to say nothing of her fingertips. Even so, she squeezed the trigger, adjusting the formulas as fast as her nerves allowed. The boulder of ice was too strong to be overcome with a single shot, and there was no way to shoot around it. So, her course of action was all too clear. Destroy it! Selector, or alternate. The third layer reconfigured itself from direct to alternating current. Though normally this formula would be used for making trajectory adjustments, all she cared about right now was numbers. Set! Octagram! All layers, maximum rotation. Oh my god. You're gonna destroy the fucking Earth at this rate. And dead. A blue sun burned in the night sky. The maximum output beams rushed to strike down the golden moon. There goes the asteroid. And the moon goes next. Or the snark. This... Holding down the trigger, she tirelessly fired off a never-ending stream of magical energy. Man. It's still there? Come on. Blue flames erupted from the critical zone, but the boulder of ice refused to thaw. It wasn't a matter of temperature. The amount of magical energy was just too different. The load on her circuits rampaged and turned bloody. Even though I'm spinning them this much, that bastard is still stronger. This fight was a scramble for the magical energy filling the amusement park. But, from the very beginning, this place was the Snark's Garden. Its control of the area was at 80%, while Aoko stood at a mere 20%. Damn it! I can't stop it! As if declaring victory, the frozen fortress continued its descent. All she could do was delay the inevitable. She understood that she was cornered, but kept on shooting nonetheless. But she did have one other option. If she took all this magical energy and used it for defense, she alone might just know. She'd almost certainly be able to survive. No, I can't even think that. If I make full use of the magical energy here, even that ice will... Clinging to her shattered hope, Aoko continued spinning her circuits. The overdose of magical energy slowed time to a crawl. A single second of pain stretched on for an eternity. And, within that... Something encroaching. Something hidden from view. Something. The fuck is that? Wait. Her whole body broke out in goosebumps. The looming eyes vanished from her thoughts. Here, in this stopped time, with ominous footsteps, the Red Death came to claim her. Why now, of all times? Her circuit mind exploded from fear. Her formula heart tore at the seams. It approached her from behind, drowning. With blood-stained hands, it reached around and grasped her cheeks. That is fucking creepy. Hello. She wanted to scream with every fiber of her being. Enough. It doesn't matter. Anything is fine. If you can run, run. If you're holding something back, unleash it. If there's something you can use it without mercy. That's right. She had a last-ditch trump card. A miracle that could render that boulder of ice little more than an annoyance, dropped in her lap one day as a joke. That is what this Red Death has come to kill. If she used it, it would be her ruin. If she didn't use it, she would die. In that case, why hesitate? It wasn't like there was any restrictions on its use. There was no need for equivalent exchange. It was just that, once she used it, she would no longer be herself. Oh, this must be where her red hair comes from. Oh, but was that really so bad? Humans are ambiguous beings. Every minute, the electrical impulses in their brain disconnect countless times. There's nothing that persists forever, not even the self. It wasn't anything particularly despicable. Nor was it some kind of great taboo. Shut up. And yet, her voice was tinged with anger. The red shadow was mystified. The girl shouted wordlessly. She could win if she used magic? Don't spout off about things you don't understand. To begin with, from the start. How do you expect me to do that? The right way to use that so-called magic. She didn't have the slightest idea what it was. I love this music. So epic. Well, that did nothing. Sojo's like, we're all dead. Aoko, if you don't accept the red-hooded woman, we're all fucked. I must be an idiot. She awoke from her momentary hallucination, a fantasy conjured by a mind on the verge of breaking. Instead of crushing her, that moment of weakness ignited her pride. Will you escape? Yes, though she'd been put in check, the same applied to her opponent. The reason for her defeat was clear, so she just needed to counter it. She should be able to pull it off. It was outrageous, sure, but she couldn't give up before she tried it. Yeah, giving up before I've done everything I can is just... She squeezed her fingers, which had already lost all sensation. What she was considering was a tremendous gamble that made her doubt her own sanity. If she made even a tiny mistake in the first step, her body would be vaporized on the spot. But she knew a boy that didn't run away. Even thrust into a desperate situation, the faint glimmer of his courage persisted to the end. There was more than her own life at stake here. If the ice dropped, the amusement park itself would be destroyed. Everything that boy so calmly, desperately risked his life for would be for naught. Really, why did he have to be so obstinate? Her determination and confidence exploded. Like hell, she'd go out crushed to death by a block of ice. If I'm going to die anyway, then I might as well self-destruct. She laughed to herself. Unfortunately for the Snark, she was a sore loser. She'd burn herself to ash before she let herself be killed. Oh no. Change. The magical energy in her body raged. Her circuits were on the verge of disintegration. Her crest, sorcery-given form, was not only being carved into her flesh, but the very marrow of her bones. An amused smile spread across her face. In the midst of so much pain, reason and rules had been reversed. It was only natural. This is it. I can do it if I try. What else could she do but commend her body for continuing to endure after being pushed to the limit? The skull finally noticed the anomaly. Its control of the space was being challenged. But could it laugh at that self-conceit? To think that a wielder of magical energy greater than the Flat Snark, the 1,000-year king of vessels, would appear in this degenerate age. She caught her breath and braced herself for the coming pain. She would destroy that ice. The amount of magical energy I had access to was exactly the same. If she was losing, it was only because... There's a difference in the output device. It's got me beat when it comes to barrel size. In other words, all I have to do is make myself bigger. How would you do that exactly? Oh, make the circle bigger. Change bullet. What in the fuck is this? The feedback was unlike any she'd felt before. Her plan was simple and extremely reckless. She expanded the two formulas she'd laid down. The first was an enormous vortex for sucking in fog. The second processed every last bit of that magical energy and pumped it into the barrel. I was too naive. Shooting that thing down, what a half-hearted notion. What I really need to do is blow it to smithereens. Here's the real final shot. At least I hope so. The primordial magical energy responded to the conviction of its wielder. Twisting into the shape of an enormous serpent, it rose in revolt against its creator. Now, take heed of the land, bold legacy. For there stands the vanguard of progress, the defiler of mysteries, spoiler of traditions, the fearless representative of humanity. Everything I've borrowed up until now is yours, you lying boojum. The fuck does that mean? If you want it so bad, I'll gladly give it all back. Bearing the principles of consumption and extinction, the newest magician launched her attack. Ooh. Again. Third time's a charm. That has to do something, come on. A beam that defied common sense melted the ice. Her barrel was unbreakable. Her use of magical energy, divine. 100,000 kilometers. Blood vessels equaling 2.5 times the circumference of the Earth greedily drew in magical energy and propelled the bullet toward the moon. No! 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 The shadow of death fell over the face of the moon. A cry of fear, or perhaps indignation, reverberated through the deserted amusement park. For one such as the Snark that lived in fantasy, reality was a hateful sight. Huh. That useless resistance made her certain. It was wasting its time. The scales of victory had tilted entirely in her favor. Reload. Total lunar eclipse. Contracting projecting bullet. Black like star bow. Pierce it! Oh, here we go. You know, if it glows red, it's bad. Oh! Grand cannon! Shatter, 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 shatter. A skyscraper crumbling to dust. The island of despair, extolled as unreachable, that consumed many challengers. That which had never before been sullied by human knowledge was just a little farther. The final strike. There goes the Snark. The Snark has been snarked. Azure fog cried out in ruin. The canopy of ice collapsed. The Snark hunting bullet had surpassed the moon. In its last moments, a sound like the roaring sea echoed through the wonderland. You just got snarked, bitch. Jesus Christ. The battle was over. The dense fog disappeared. The shattered ice vanished in the air. The King of the Night was shot down with its throne, without even time to lament its defeat. Oil of the Moon. The unreachable flat Snark. Its dream revived this abandoned place, and with its death, the curtain lowered on this nightmare. That was one hell of a fight scene. I wasn't sure we were going to see that scene so soon. I do remember seeing that on YouTube and being just in utter awe of it. Phew, I guess I overdid it. Yeah, I guess you did. Somehow you have not collapsed from... Oh, maybe she did. Aoko laid on her back and gazed at the night sky. She couldn't even move a finger. Her whole body screamed out in protest when she tried to sit up. She was completely out of magical energy, and her crest had stopped running. It would probably take a whole day for her stamina, or rather, her bodily functions to fully recover. Sad to say, right now it was all she could do just to keep breathing. On the other hand, her chest was swelling with pride. She had faced one of those fairy tale monsters head-on and come out on top. True, a lot of it had come down to luck, but compared to where she was half a year ago, she'd made remarkable progress. Still, I'll have to apologize to Alice. Once a ploy is broken, it's gone for good. Yes, the flat Snark would never appear again. That super rare good renowned is one of the great treasures of the magic world, whose price would have been incalculable if it had been put to the market at the Association in London, had just been destroyed without a trace. It was safe to say things had gotten a tad out of hand. That's putting it very lightly, Aoko. But since they had both consented to the fight, Alice probably wouldn't complain. Even if she was seething on the inside, she'd never be so crass as to show it. As soon as she relaxed, her fatigue finally caught up with her, and she was hit by an overwhelming wave of drowsiness. The only thing that kept her from passing out was pure willpower. Miraculously, though aside from all the minor internal injuries, she was completely unscathed. If she had just rested here for a while, she would have been back on her feet in no time. The golden moon continued to burn, illuminating the night. Well, it is oil, after all. Go ahead and burn forever, you. Her eyes, which had been staring vacantly at the sky, suddenly went wide with terror. Still unable to move. Oh, right. In the end, the baker who found the Snark disappeared too, didn't he? Uh-oh. She sighed and resigned herself to her fate. In a few seconds, she would be extinguished by one last counterattack. The fuck is that? Meanwhile, a little earlier, high atop the wind-whipped roller coaster, Sojiro stared worriedly at the ground. A forlorn murmur escaped his lips. From here he could see Aoko carving something into the pavement, unnoticed by the creatures below, as well as... What on earth is that thing made of? Further back, he could almost swear he had seen an all-too-familiar something in the direction of the Hall of Mirrors. Sojiro's role, the task of throwing Aoko's hair from a height of 60 meters, was over. Even if it wasn't very flashy, it had still been a life-or-death ordeal. And on top of that, he was getting dizzy just thinking about how he was going to get down from here. The absolute last thing he needed was more trouble. But... What the fuck? Alright, this again. He stood on top of the violently swaying track, flustered. A giant skull had suddenly appeared in the sky above. Below, Aoko was crouched in the middle of a revolving blue light. And there was one more thing. Unbeknownst to everyone but Sojiro, a shadow was closing in on Aoko as she challenged the moon. Are you fucking kidding? Is that thing somehow still alive? Its legs were missing. With nothing more than a torso, it slowly slithered toward the plaza. The distance between them was roughly 200 meters. Unfortunately, since it was approaching her from behind, Aoko was completely oblivious to the threat. It's too far away to see clearly, but there was no mistaking it. The only thing in this amusement park that would target Aoko over him was that puppet. Wasn't it destroyed by the fucking Hall of Mirrors? How is it still there? No, but wait, what if maybe it's just a coincidence? His thoughts spun around and around in circles. It was only natural. He had lost his already tenuous grasp on the situation the second Aoko started shooting beams at the transforming moon. She's doing it again. Whoa! The merciless, ultra-long-range bullet rocked the roller coaster like a gale. He almost fell off just standing there. At any rate, the situation was too complicated. Should he go back to the roller coaster's entrance and try to warn Aoko? No, he'd never make it in time, and that way was blocked by a crowd of baked bread anyway. Plus, there was always the possibility that she had already noticed the puppet and would strike it down as soon as it got close. If that was the case, he was sure he'd just get in the way. No matter what he decided to do, it didn't seem like he would be able to help at all. In the first place, Aoko was the only one in danger. He was in quite the predicament himself. Going in is easy, but returning is scary. The way back was always perilous. On that, the city and the mountains were in agreement. This was no exception. Coming up had been dangerous enough, but going back down would be even worse. He didn't have the luxury of worrying about other people. His shaking legs warned him not to forget that he was perched over a 60-meter abyss of death. I know that, but his head hurt. He knew it was reckless and stupid. Being raised in the mountains had made him more sensitive to danger than anybody from the city could ever hope to be. Just thinking about what he was about to do made his throat clench. But there was one thing he could say for sure. She definitely hasn't noticed that thing. Oh my god, you gotta be kidding me. He's gonna run down there? What an idiot! With a shout that was almost a sob, Sojiro started dashing down the 60-meter tall steel frame. Ah! His race toward death accelerated. He was going downhill after all. Speeding up was unavoidable. And he is going to fall flat on his face. This is... It was too late for regrets. Once he'd started running, his only choice was to keep moving forward. And anyway, he was really short on time. Even if he ran as fast as he could, he probably wouldn't make it. Oh, and there was a crowd of breadmen waiting for him at the bottom, too. In which case, it didn't matter how fast he went, since the exit was closed off either way. Going faster and faster, falling with every step, it was totally pointless. But so what? He cut down his worries with a single stroke. All he could do now is try to keep his footing and get there even a second sooner. I'm getting ahead of myself. Whether I can make it in time or whether I can help her, that's not what matters right now. Even he didn't know what impulse drove his stiff limbs. Ignoring his parched throat and faltering heart, he focused entirely on his plan. True to his reputation, he'd think about the hard stuff later. Careful of that egg. But his body wasn't the only obstacle in his way. Seriously? Now? At a time like this, when he needed absolute focus to keep from falling, the worst possible hindrance appeared. It's gonna break. At a glance, the egg was the same as ever, but something about it felt wrong. What was different? The instant he noticed the change. Wait, now's not the time to be looking somewhere else. He stumbled and caught himself through sheer instinct. The fact that he hadn't fallen yet was a miracle. Dashing down a roller coaster like this was suicidal. And I don't think you'd be able to, really. The egg stuck right by him, close enough to ram him if it wanted to. On top of that, though he didn't really want to look at it, the fact that the door-like ornament was in the middle of opening little by little worried him to no end. Ah, damn it, why is this happening to me? Because you're one of the main characters? He cursed this dead-end situation. Visual novel references. Even so, his feet didn't slow. I'm pretty sure there is no dead ends in this, since there really aren't any choices. On the contrary, he sped up and glared at the egg beside him. I must be crazy. Things are this bad, so why? Why am I smiling? He was mystified. Maybe it was the effect of Alco's charm. The feel of her touch still lingered on his skin. The trust and expectation she placed in him was etched into his chest. Nevertheless, what drove him now was something else entirely. This exhalation stemmed from a deeper problem, a void that ought to be filled, which he himself didn't understand and would one day have to face. Okay, less than 2 meters away now. He accurately measured the distance as he ran down the rail of death. But the distance to what? That went without saying. He was gauging the gap between himself and the one thing that could get him out of this situation alive. In between ragged breaths, he pumped himself up for what he was about to do. It was truly impossible. It was incredibly stupid. But if he didn't do it, he'd never make it in time. Really, why am I going this far? He laughed sardonically. It was a little late for self-reflection, wasn't it? The temporary confusion, the thrill of the situation, had laid bare his soul. What was important? Simple as he was, he didn't even have to think about it. His primitive heart didn't crave results or rewards. He just wanted to do it for himself. It wasn't a duty pushed on him by others. It was purely his own straightforward desire to live a certain way. Here we go. If the egg had been equipped with the ability to speak, it surely would have cried out in surprise. The boy who had until then done nothing but run away suddenly and deliberately changed course. Instead of the inside of the rail, he aimed for the outside. At the edge, he bent his knees slightly to maintain momentum, locked his eyes on the floating egg, and... Oh, he's gonna grab it. I can make it. He's gonna grab the egg, isn't he? What an idiot. Oh my god. He soared through the air. Oh no, he's gonna jump over it. It was a 1.5 second night flight. A 30-meter bungee jump without a cord. And his destination? Oh, he is gonna grab the egg. It was the giant flying egg, the sole foothold in the sky. Oh my god. Is this fucking happening right now? Yeah! He let out a shrieking, joyful cry and wrapped his arms around it as tightly as he could. Just a little bit earlier, a cold-hearted witch had told him that without fear, the top of a building would be no different from a balance beam. But if she could see him now, even she would be at a loss for words. Fearlessness and recklessness were two different things. Moreover, what he did next would cause her no small amount of irritation in the days to come. I'm counting on you, Egg! Hanging for dear life, he looked away. His stomach lurched from the sudden drop. Don't break! Humpty Dumpty shouldn't be able to break unless he is left alone. He watched the ground with half-closed eyes. Then, a mere meter before impact, he looked back at the egg and leapt off, making sure not to let it out of his sight again. It really was unbelievable. To him, the mysteriously floating egg and the elevators at the department store were both moving tools. Not so different at all. Good, it didn't break. Food should always be treated with respect. Yeah, well, I guess those chickens are treated with respect after you chop them up, just like cows. They're being respected. He landed near the plaza. The shortcut he'd risked his life for had paid off in spades. He took off running the second his feet touched the ground. The only thing on his mind was the puppet hunting Alco. He took no notice of the moonbeams falling from the sky. Uh-oh, the egg. The egg, though. Or the egg, furious at being used and about to self-destruct. Alco! Huh? His incredulous expression pushed him forward. Oh no, you done fucked up, son. The curse expanded. I've got you now, the empty egg sang. Oh shit. And things are getting real. Eggshell shrapnel flew in all directions. The song to honor Queen Alice engraved into Dumpty rapidly deprived him of sight and sound, touch and taste. Is that all you got? He reinvigorated his fading senses and ran up to Alco, who was collapsed on the ground. His feet wouldn't stop. To begin with, the fact that he couldn't feel anything meant he couldn't have stopped them even if he wanted to. You just don't know when to give up. Yep. This can only end badly. Jesus Christ. Oh, it's gonna pierce the puppet. There goes the puppet. Oh, I thought that would destroy the entire park, but apparently not. I guess that was the last it had. Scrambled murder case. 3 wrecks became glints of light blooming in the earth. That was close. As the curtain closed, the losers kindly removed themselves from the stage. Aoko and Sojiro only narrowly escaped the same fate, a fate which, if Koonji Alice was watching, had doubtless left her at her wit's end. Well, that's one way to get rid of that fucking puppet. The only one who could appreciate the rarity of such mutual destruction was the girl who had been saved. The boy who had kept on running didn't even glance back. Well, now you owe Sojiro a second time for saving your life. Again. Phew, I thought we were goners. He breathed a sigh of relief. As far as he was concerned, the safety of the girl in his arms was far more important than the miracle he'd just brought about. What in the fuck just happened? That was 2 hours of complete fucking nonsense. And so, the moon set ahead of the dawn. The texture of the fairy tale kingdom melted away. The gaudy melodies that filled the streets. The puppets that greeted their guests. Everything vanished and returned to how it was before. Peacefully, quietly, it slipped into oblivion, never to awake again. The embers of a fleeting dream. One by one, the lights illuminating the amusement park were dying. And 2 people watched as this spectacle played out. Sojiro was sprawled out on the ground, desperately gasping for air. The curse of the exploding egg had paralyzed his sense of pain, and the fatigue he'd accumulated must have been considerable. He looked like a light breeze might blow him away. Aoko, on the other hand, hid her exhaustion well. She was taking deep breaths and doing her best to recover her stamina. Hey. She addressed Sojiro indifferently, while staring intently at the park. The abruptness of it was a bit theatrical. It was obvious she wanted to look him in the face, but was too prideful to actually do it. You did something sort of amazing, didn't you? The moment she accepted her death had stretched on for eternity. Even she couldn't believe the calm detachment she felt as she laid there, watching the splinters of the moon bear down on her. But then, at the last second, a strong voice had called out and dragged her back to reality. Why did he help her? What was he thinking? What sort of crazy things had he done in the process? Oh, if only you knew. He jumped down from the roller coaster and grabbed the fucking egg. He used it to cushion his fall. That was amazing. I really like Sojiro. He's just so fucking crazy. He's pretty much the wild card. All she knew for sure was that at the very last moment, he had completely made up for his mistakes in the Hall of Mirrors. She wanted to ask him all about it, but something stopped her. She had a feeling she'd lose face if she put what she was thinking into words, and ended up clumsily striking up a conversation like this instead. Luckily, though the person she was addressing didn't have the composure or the sensitivity to notice how pathetic she was being. If anyone's amazing, it's you, he answered through heaving breaths without turning to face her. Right now, he was having a hard enough time just getting oxygen to his burning lungs. She glanced at him out of the side of her eye. Thinking back on it, his role both times had been the same. Whether it was in the Hall of Mirrors or the amusement park, he did everything he could without making light of his helplessness. It was completely different from an idiot like her who had beaten her opponent but fallen from her own momentum. So, for him, even this recklessness was nothing special. A proposal. I help you take that thing out, and in return you let me go. It was simply the courage to never back down from a task he could handle. From the audience, he may have seemed a mere bit player. Certainly, his efforts weren't very flashy. I kinda would beg to differ there, but to the girl that he supported, nothing could be further from the truth. Well, I don't really want to admit it though, much less say it out loud. His inspiration wasn't something that could be relegated to a secondary role. He had fought so hard that she had wanted to shout it out from the rooftops to anyone who would listen. He's the amazing one, not me! Huh. Aoko? I swear, it's like he's so harmless he looped back around to dangerous. She sighed to herself. But what else could she do? She couldn't deny that when he had saved her just now, he'd actually looked a little cool. Well, maybe I'm being too nice. No, you're actually being sort of dare for once. You have to stop that right now. You have to be soon again. Soon. Honestly, going through all that trouble himself was stupid to the extreme. Aoko doesn't seem to understand selflessness. She exhaled as she pushed herself up off the ground. To tell the truth, she was still in a pretty bad shape, but she had her pride as a Magus to think about. A proper proclamation required a certain air of dignity. Sojiro, I know I said I'd give you a one-day reprieve, but you can forget about that. For now, I've decided to spare your life. She extended her right hand impatiently, apparently looking to either seal the deal or help him to his feet. However, he left her hanging and stood up on his own. He'd been through hell and back tonight, but this was the first time he'd made such an astonished face. Her too. What's with that reaction? She stammered, worried that she had done something unspeakably embarrassing. His stare was intense, unwavering. I feel like just in these last two videos, they've gotten, like, both of their characters and their relationship in general have just gotten a ton of character, just development. I like it, but the worst part was she didn't hate it. In fact, there was a warmth in his eyes that she might even be able to get used to. Even though there isn't romance in this, I just get the vague feeling that Aoko does have some kind of romantic feelings for Sojiro, or she does start to develop some of those, some feelings for him. Maybe, maybe not, not sure. I'm not talking about friendship or likes and dislikes. Soji, he said he seriously... Oh, just then, she remembered something better left forgotten. No, you're wrong. After mentally rejecting Tobimaru's words, she turned back to Sojiro. Don't get any ideas. I couldn't care less about you. Okay. You already told me you don't like me earlier. Although he was puzzled by her sudden outburst, he answered her matter-of-factly, without objection. True, she had said that, to his face no less. But it was just a figure of speech. He wasn't supposed to take it seriously, and more importantly, this was hardly the time to be talking about it. I didn't mean it like that. I was only saying you shouldn't expect anything, even if you love me. Of course, it seemed she couldn't let it go either. She blushed faintly, realizing just how out of character this was for her. How on earth did I get myself into this mess? She grumbled. Well, at any rate, she'd gone and said it. All that was left was to politely wait for his response. I can't go out with you. After hearing such heart-rending words, the simple, honest country boy was slumping his shoulders like the world had fallen out from... Huh? Actually, he was just standing there, deep in thought. I'm in love with you? He murmured the words as if casting a spell. That's right, she shot back. This is great. He pondered it long and hard, to the point that Aoko, who was waiting for him to say something, started to get a little flustered. Then finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he looked back at her and answered without hesitation. What makes you say that? I love that sound effect, too. It didn't seem like a joke. He was being completely serious. In short, he liked her, but nothing more. His vice president jumped to the wrong conclusion. Nothing like romance and love affairs had ever existed in this boy's head to begin with. She was completely and utterly mortified. The heat from her face spread and assaulted her entire body. Hey, did you hear me? What's this? What's all this about? Oh, shit. That's what I want to know. Tobimaru, you idiot. Just like that. She gave in to a fit of unjustifiable violence. After everything that Sojiro has done for you, you just punch him in the face. Block off the area and destroy the evidence. Lost in a haze of cheek-melting embarrassment, her grudge toward Tobimaru had manifested itself as a sudden crime of passion. That jab, technically more of a hook, could have taken down a bird in mid-flight. It just destroyed his face. The satisfying crunch of his face against her fist brought her back to her senses. She had let her emotions get the better of her and taken it out on a defenseless victim. It was a wonderful blow that rendered him wonderfully unconscious. I'm not responsible for this. He crumpled to the ground with a groan. Apparently, taking a punch to the head on top of Dumpty's curse was too much for him. Though, if it weren't for that grimace, he could almost pass for sleeping. Yeah, that's what happened. He's not unconscious, he just fell asleep. In a dazzling display of mental gymnastics, she forcibly reinterpreted the sequence of events leading up to this moment. Well, whatever. This was the plan all along. Looking down at Sojiro's fallen body, she finally relaxed. A lot of things had gotten in her way, but for now, the case was closed. With nobody to act tough for anymore, she was suddenly overwhelmed by exhaustion. Phew, I wonder if I'll be able to walk home like this. An idle complaint. Thinking about it, this was the first time she'd ever used up all her magical energy. or had such an intense battle without preparation. But more than that. If I had been alone, it would have been a mutual kill. There was a hint of pride in her voice. By all rights, it was something she should be beating herself up over, but instead, she simply shrugged her shoulders with a bitter smile. It was probably all thanks to the certain someone lying next to her. Unconscious, because you punched him. Hey, are you listening? No reply. Her voice had been swallowed by the night. Relieved, she continued, even more quietly. Thank you for everything. You really helped me. Yeah, you tell him that when he's unconscious. Of course, there was no response. She never expected one. She just wanted to say it. God damn it. His life is truly a thankless one. She gazed at his fitfully sleeping face for a moment, then, feeling refreshed, pulled something out of her pocket. The palm-sized glass bottle her roommate had given her opened with a pop. But that doesn't matter. What is she doing? Leaving him with words colder than the winter wind, she called out his name. Though he didn't answer, there was a reaction. His silhouette blurred, and she could swear she felt the weight of the bottle increase ever so slightly soon after. Well, I wonder how this thing works. You used it without knowing what it does? A vaguely humanoid form was definitely trapped within the clouded glass. Oh, she shrunk him and put him in the glass. What the fuck? Each and every one of Koangialis' tools were mysteries that confounded even other magi. Trying to apply things like logic or reason to them was futile. Accepting that, she put the lid back on and watched the boy beside her fade away as if by sleight of hand. Geez, you can barely call this a trick, though. It might as well be real magic. Muttering to herself, she peered into the magic bottle. The weight hadn't changed much, and she still had no idea what made it tick, but sure enough, a human being was inside. The lightness of it was almost unreal. Rather than a person, it felt like carrying the wind. If she had bottled a warm summer breeze, this was exactly how much it would weigh. Somehow, she thought it was strangely fitting. It's just like Alice said, she muttered absent-mindedly, reflecting on her own thoughts. This isn't like me. Her usual sullenness was nowhere to be found. The world was a big place. Maybe having someone out there who could throw her off her game wasn't so bad after all. Hey, the park's lights are all still on, by the way. Smiling wryly, she flicked the side of the bottle once with her finger, then quietly started walking. Wow. It's kind of a bitchy thing to do. Although I'm not sure why you put him in that bottle in the first place. Oh, there goes the lights. Far, far away, the final bell chimed. The fleeting dream was over. With the actors gone, the last few lights silently flickered out. Thus, the long-dead amusement park fulfilled its role and became a place of memories for the boy and girl. Ah, is that it? Come on. That's the end, I want to say. At least I think it is. That's it. It's the end of the English translated chapters. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this playthrough. I know I have, at least so far I have enjoyed it. But all good things must come to an end. Well, not to an end, but to a very long hiatus. And yeah, I guess I'll see you guys whenever more of this is translated. So until then, I hope you guys enjoy these videos, and I will hopefully continue them in the near future. And I'll see you all later.